The bill?
Please, how come the next calling?
Start recording when after 4:30.
Jake said that I could start at 5 minutes early.
What?
Jake said that I could start at 5 minutes early.
Thank you, public comment.
See here. Click on share drive.
Yep.
Cool. Then on to planning commission. Where's it at?
It should already be pulled up for you, Mr. Levitt.
Yeah, that was, I was just figuring out how to get to the map,
Oh,
the GIS map.
Our proposed map. How do we do that? Normally under share drive, under in the documents. Go to. Yeah, go to share drive. Go to planning, yep. Go to comp plan update, top one.
Yep.
And then you're gonna go down to comp plan. Script, click down. And then go down to land use. Boom. And you're gonna go to proposed draft.
Well,
There she is. I think that's probably a very, oh geez. Where is it?
There's one back that has, we don't want land use, there's a maps and texts.
at the very bottom, I think.
We went to dinner very early. Because we decided like that day.
Yeah.
I still can't find it.
No, that's so. Did you find current one?
We.
For what? I was just trying to find more current copy of that. Draft. I can't find it under the land use folder.
That's how already.
Looking for the map.
Your son.
Yeah.
Son can't.
Right. I can't even find it.
How is the Gulf of America?
Under what folder?
You know, I don't know. I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm still calling. Right,
Yep.
because that's what it is. I don't know, I was in over there.
Land use, yeah.
Well, what's the difference between marshmallow?
I have no idea. Last time we back.
Yep, I'm there.
I couldn't figure that out either. I have it on my computer.
When'd you get back? Except for one small.
Well, I said, it doesn't look normal. I meant, no, that's what I said, I'm under land use, proposed drafts, draft sections. I don't see any version.
Actually, sort of behind it.
Probably just, it's worth.
Where you at?
All right, I'm gonna call, are we recording? Here we are.
Oh, hold on one second, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, we-
Here's that, here's the bottom part. Okay, you're good, Mr. Chair.
I'm gonna call this evening's meeting of the planning commission to order. And the first item of business is pledge of allegiance. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How the bowls?
Commissioner Linscott.
Commissioner Levitt.
Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Sonstad. Commissioner Hidden.
Commissioner Peter Taylor.
Commissioner Frankenbach.
Okay, we got everybody here. Any announcement, Mr. Goodell?
Yes. Give me one moment. I have some summaries, if you'd like me to give you guys numbers now on how we did on the workshop. Like total comments, or we can wait till we get to that section. Other than that, Mr. Mike Bowling's here and he has an update on where we're at with the public comments on the GIS application that we've been working on for the last couple of months. It's not quite ready for your guys' use yet. We're still crunching some data. We just closed that public comments on Saturday, I believe, the 15th. So they had to pull in the mobile comment data and merge that with the ones that were made. So they need a few more, plus we were closed yesterday, so they need a little bit more time to crunch that information, but they'll definitely have it ready by the next meeting.
Okay. Michael? I don't know if you guys can make me. You want to give Michael a.
Yeah, I can give them a microphone. You got a mic? give them like tomorrow. You should be.
Jake, you want to give us your summary of attendance?
So at the roadshow, the 9 different meetings, we had 207, approximate public attendance was 207, with the biggest being in Sagal, which around 39, and the least attended was around 12. 20 was about the average, essentially, 18. So decent. Public comments. I think we have 394 written comments.
394.
And that's,
It's only 161 of them.
Those are coming in.
these are emailed to us. Some of those are responses from different county commissioners. We've seen a lot of folks are sending stuff right to the board of county commissioners. So some commissioners are replying to those, and sometimes these are getting added because they're sent directly to planning. Some are sent to you guys and forwarded to us. So rather than try to figure out whose comments are whose, those are all in there. So just know there's of the written comments, we have a whole lot of them. I did pull everything that was received prior to our open houses and put those in its own folder. So if you guys remember from like last June, whenever you had a lot of public comments coming in when you had the rural residential and no ag forest. So you had a whole bunch of public comments that were kind of revolving around that idea, which has been essentially canned. So I put all those into one folder, and then everything since the open houses started, I put into your guys' list. So
So wait a minute, though. Is that total, including the folder that dealt with the rural designation? Is
No.
that 394 or is that?
no. We have 394 right now, and then you have an additional 37 that were received prior.
Are some of those are duplicates of 394?
Yes,
Because they would send them to us, and then I would get an email from the planning department saying we just received this. That means that's true.
if anything was forwarded to us, like some of these are forwarded from different commissioners, those might be duplicates, but I don't know what got forwarded to us versus what was sent directly to us. So we've been PDFing and dropping all of these emails into this box. So I haven't done an audit on this yet or reviewed them. I have, like, Commissioner Balke has replied to a lot of these, so his replies are also added into this. And then you have 223 comments on the app itself as well. So it's a lot of public feedback to try to evaluate.
So a lot of the duplicates are duplicates because there were canned emails.
Most,
send it.
yes.
So there's a lot of duplication there. Where there were some comments submitted as written comments at the workshops, weren't there?
Yes.
Which total are those included in?
So I was asking my staff this morning to take all of those and make them in the same naming convention as our other public comments and put those in the public comments. Right now, they're separated out. If you go into the open house, and in each one of the open houses, they're separated out. So in
Okay.
Blanchard, for example,
Yeah, I saw
there's
those.
like 6 public comments that are written that are all scanned and put into that file.
Okay.
But we're trying to keep the naming convention the same and add those in other public comments as well. Okay, Mr. Bowling.
Yeah, so this is a kind of rough draft of the app that you guys will be using to review the comments. Open to any suggestions, ideas that you guys want added in here, but we could do a real quick idea. Like Jake said, we're still kind of processing the data, so that 223 number might not be exactly right. But it'll be around. But the basic functionality of this is all the not reviewed comments are on that list on the left hand side. When you click on one of the comments, it'll zoom you to the map. And display the comments down here. And then basically you guys just have a drop down. You guys will be utilizing to say that, yes, we reviewed the comment. When that happens, the comment will be removed from the left-hand list and moved into that right-hand reviewed comment list. And there's a slight lag, 5 or 10 seconds after you hit submit, it's removed from the not reviewed list and over the reviewed list.
So when we review them as a commission or when we review them individually, because I mean, I was on there this morning and I saw 161, I think this morning. And I reviewed all of them.
Sure. So I guess it's kind of,
Yeah, so that's, I guess that's the question for the planning commission here is, do you want to review these in an open session like this, where we're looking at each individual one and you're marking as reviewed, or we could have it reviewed by and have initials, so it gets kicked from one side to the other, or how do you want this to function? We kind of had a brief discussion about this early on, but I'm going based on the stuff of my memory from back in October and early November.
if you guys all wanted your own version of this, give you your own version, so you're doing, going through and personally reviewing all these and marking these off as reviewed.
Because all an individual is doing is just review it and not add any comments about the review. Right?
So
It's the way it's currently set up. I mean, if you guys wanted to add comments and stuff, we can do that.
If that was going to be, then I'd say you should look at them individually, and that we can look at the other comments that people made. Well, the thing is, it's gonna take a lot of time. I think that would be a waste of time. I think we need to all review them as best we can, and then, review. I probably reviewed those comments a couple of times, more than two, probably.
okay,
Yeah, they boil down into certain categories of comments. And I think that's, what we need to be able to do is look at the kind of the comments that are similar in subject matter and deal with those as a back. And then we can go to, the ones that are more specific. Some of them are pretty specific as to a parcel or parcels. And there's some of those that, we can't deal with on a sort of an overall basis. So I think we need to try to do that. And I'm prepared to do, some of that tonight.
okay,
But I think to go through and look at every comment in a meeting is going to be very time consuming.
Sure.
Especially when so many of them, as Dave mentioned, are duplicative. Some of them are form letters. Even when they're not, I mean, they have the same thing.
so from what I'm hearing, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. You want individual logins, and all of your reviews essentially won't be one review, it'll be based on individuals. So you guys will each be able to look at this, call it reviewed on your login to this strat. Or to
Well,
this-
let me ask a question, if you don't mind, just so I maybe help understand kind of where we're going and therefore what we need.
Mhm.
What are we doing with these comments? And obviously, we
Yeah.
want to look at them, read them, digest them, incorporate them as applicable. But what are we actually doing with the comments beyond that?
So I think the next phase of this is the original application we're using to annotate, drop your little diamonds on the map and make suggested changes to the comp plan designations, like the colors on the map. I talked to Mike about calling that first round just first round and have it have its own layer that you can toggle on and off, and then creating a second round with a different diagram on the map, a star or something along those lines, where you can differentiate it from the original comments and turn off that layer. So what I would see you guys doing is analyzing these, going to the map and making suggested changes based on the comments. And then in open session, just like we did before, where we're reviewing those as a group, you guys are agreeing with or not agreeing with, or making suggestions on changing on the map. Does that sound like a decent path forward?
I think we ought to. Obviously, I've only reviewed 161, I haven't reviewed 223, so I don't know what the other.
A lot of this is the mobile data you guys didn't have on the original, the beta version of this. We weren't able to combine those as we go, so we had to wait till we close, and then by we, I mean GIS, I had no part in this, I didn't do any of the work. So GIS took all that data and combined it. So if you zoom out on the map a little bit, Mike, you'll see these like circles that are what, quarter acre?
Not sure exactly what.
I'm trying to remember.
Or half a mile or.
Yeah, it's like a half mile. See like the circles on the map. Those are the mobile data. They didn't have, it's a pinpoint. It's a dot on the map, not an area. So I had them create it in like a circle as an area. So
My suggestion would be. That every commissioner go through all these comments.
Mhm.
And indicate that you, we use them in the past. And then we deal with, the large categories of comments. In an open meeting like tonight.
Mhm.
And move from there. I don't think it's productive. To have the same exercise that we had to begin with when we were looking at different sections, different commissioners have different sections. And we looked at them and made suggestions and we put those on the map. I think we need to do that now in open session.
okay.
That's my thought. It's a good thought.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think we can probably, for the sake of efficiency, we can probably deal with. I'm just gonna pull a number out of thin air, 80% of the comments by thinking about 2 or 3 issues. So one issue we clearly need to think about is what do we want to do with the smaller, already developed waterfront properties around the county?
Correct.
That's probably half the comments that we
At
got
least.
related to that particular issue. We got a large number of comments that had to do with the perception that we didn't have sufficient definition of what it meant to get adequate water or sewer. And that clearly is because people were only looking at the matrix where all we say is adequate water or sewer, and they weren't reading the text where we say adequate water or sewer as determined by the relevant agency, DEQ, IDWR, Technical Health, et cetera. There's a few others, I think. I mean, we got a lot of comments that had to do with removing engineering standards for Alpine Village and the steep slopes. So I'm not even sure where that came from, because that's a code thing, not a comp plan
I
thing.
think it's in combining the Alpine designation
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
resort. So I think people are jumping to some conclusions.
Right,
Yeah.
so there's maybe 4 or 5 issues like that, where if we discuss what we want to do in response, for instance, we had a little discussion last week. Some of us, I think, would quickly agree to remove the matrix. So we removed that element of confusion. We could probably deal with 75 or 80% of the comments that way, I would guess. And then there's a handful, as Alan mentioned, that maybe are more specific issues that pertain to an individual parcel or a small group of parcels or specific area, something like that. Those we need some more detailed review on, I would guess. So
I would agree. I looked at all 161. The vast majority can be categorized and just lumped in and discussed in general. The few that I saw that were particular to individual parcels, I'm not sure this is really the place for that, although somebody ought to look at it and make sure we're not missing anybody's input. But I don't think this is the place to deal with, hey, my parcel's green, it should be blue type thing. So I think we could get rid of those. But my point earlier in asking was, are you guys working, Jake, to categorize this? Would you say 200 and something different comments?
We had that discussion a little bit, I think, in like as a sit down, but a lot of these comments revolve around several concerns. So if you have, let's say someone had some environmental concerns regarding like water quality or wildfire mitigation, but in the same comment, they're having concerns about, increased density. So how do you categorize these? Do you drop it into both buckets?
I think it's going to be
duplicate it?
difficult. Yeah,
So
for you to categorize them
sure.
effectively for us to use them.
Yeah.
The one thing we talked about was list out the issues after going through the majority of the comments, if not all of them, just list out here's an issue, just keep a tab.
Yeah.
Please talk about that, and then you can go back and say, assign for the issue, assign a number or a letter or something. So this comment came in from somebody and had A, C, D, and F comments. Then if those warrant a blanket response, that can be done. So there's ways,
Yeah, and there are some individual comments that I definitely think we do need to address. I saw it on the written, but I also talked to him, one was in Priest River. He currently has property that's owned suburban. It's owned suburban. I verified this on the map. But on our our map there is proposed to make that rural 5, and I was like. You know, it was one that got missed, so I do think that we do need to somewhat look at those individuals to verify. I think it's Mr. Ide up there. There's several that I think we
Yeah, no,
definitely,
I think we do need to look at comments, even if they deal, whether they deal with this individual parcel or parcels. We still need to look at. Yeah, and I think that we. There was a bunch of comments, not a bunch, but there were some comments about. Some property along 95 in Sally Valley that they thought because of its proximity to 95 ought to be a different designation than we put it at. I mean, those are things that we need to address.
Okay,
The other thing that I'm thinking about, and it kind of came up when I was talking to Commissioner Don, I think it was Commissioner Don. You know, we're similar to what you do in EIS, where you have comments and then you have to respond to them. I mean, by law, you have to respond to them there. But I think it would be good for us to be able to create a response that would say deal with comments, you know, these 50 comments or these 100 comments. And that we've done this, you know, we considered it and we've done this, so that there's a record of that. That will then ultimately be forwarded to the county commissioners when we submit the recommendation.
okay. I have a brief analysis on public comments that I can finalize this week and get over to you guys. That I tried to categorize these into like the major topics of concern and then some breakout of that. But before we dive more into like how we're going to evaluate public comments, I want to make sure we're using Mike's time effectively, because you can't sit around for too long. And then what other functionalities do you guys want to this application? One idea we had was to add some drawing blank, sorry. Way to filter this information by geographic area. The little pie chart, do you want that there? You could click on it and pull up all of the comments related to that land use designation. So kind of what's the best way that this can function for you, or what other additional functionalities do you guys want
That'd
to
be great.
both
You
those?
can pull it up by designation.
Okay.
That's basically the categorization that we're talking about.
There's an other on this, and that's for the areas that cover multiple land use designations, right?
Right.
You have some of these that are really big, or
You'll see
the
that there's a
whole,
lot of them that deal with the recreation, residential or recreation resort, I guess we called it.
Yeah.
You'll see a whole bunch there. We can categorize those, put them in a, you know, and put it in the chart. And the Alpine Village, you know, there's a number of comments on those. So yeah. I think those will be
Okay.
Does
And
this
then-
allow us to make a comment or?
Currently don't, so I don't know if that was something we had discussed, I know.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that, maybe you guys were gonna be doing this in an open meeting, but it sounds like that's not happening now, so maybe.
you want to do this
We're gonna try to
individually.
do everything we can. And nobody-
Sure. Yeah,
The thing is, like, once you start making comments on this, that becomes a public record, then we have to gather all that together and share it with you guys, so everyone's on the same page. So how do we share that comments, or do you want to leave that to the other map? You can drop a pin and make a comment there on why you want something changed. Like we did on the-
idea too.
we could incorporate it in here where as people are submitting comments, you'd be able to see everybody else's comments.
This goes back to my question, what are we gonna do with these comments? If we're not gonna respond individually to all of them, we don't need to waste a whole bunch of time by adding functionality and individual apps, so we can all put our individual reviewed check marks on there. Let's decide how we're gonna use these inputs, and then decide what we need for the
We're
GIS.
gonna review the comments that have been made, a lot of them. And we're going to address the issues. Again. We're gonna do it in open meeting. The upshot of it is, if there's changes we think need to be made to the text, we'll make changes to the text. We need, if there's changes that we think we need to make to the map, we'll make those.
So then I think what's going to be important is to understand. For example, when we have the discussion about what we're going to do with the small already developed waterfront properties and we decide how we're going to respond. How do we determine which 157 comments we just addressed will do that?
We could
Because
just,
that's what's going to happen, right? And then there's going to be another 30 that have to do with the matrix and another whatever.
We can include that in the staff report, like the major topics of concern and then planning commission's response to that.
But I think you need to go decide, when we did that, we just dispositioned some large number of these comments. Because that's what they pertain to.
We could put some sort of category on it that you guys would then have the ability to assign these categories for, you know, I think that's what they call them.
It's really a subject.
Yeah,
Of
subject.
what the subject matter is of the comment.
Yeah, we just,
And like Jake said, there are some that are multiple
Yeah.
subjects in an individual comment.
yeah, so I don't know whose like responsibility that should be, but should be your guys to categorize them. I don't,
I don't know, I think they're so, in that sense, generic, the categories, everybody recognizes, oh, that's a comment about density, that's a comment about water quality, so forth. Like I'm saying, many of the letters do have multiple subjects in them. So somehow getting that, but at the end, here's our responses, and a lot of them are gonna be block responses to all the people who made that. Somehow listing the generator of the comment and say, here's the group responses, this goes to Harry, Jim, Betty, you know. Just so that everybody will understand that their comment is addressed. It takes some work, but.
Can we filter or add like tags, like keyword tags on
You
these?
know, that's specifically for people.
You're saying like,
Let's just take one.
so you can assign
I'm
multiple.
thinking of Asian.
I'm just wondering if there's a way we can, if, let's say we want to have a tag on Priest Lake, right? If you want to tag every comment that says Priest Lake and you can filter by Priest Lake, regardless of what the content is of the comment, whether they're in favor of or against or whatever, but if you pick out keywords, if we can add like tags, these.
So
based on
there's comments, let's go away from the lake for a minute.
Okay,
There's comments that are really kind of either they didn't read the text and they read the matrix only, as David said. Or, you know, they didn't understand that this is a land use designation, not zoning.
Yep.
And, you know, the Alpine Village stuff, a lot of that is, you know, a lack of understanding of land use designations versus zoning. We're not changing the zoning on the Alpine Village. It's just going to be a separate zone, right? So that's all it was. So that's not going to, what I'm getting at is that's not going to result in change in the map or the text. It's just going to be an explanation.
Okay.
So there's comments that may result in a change to the map or the text. There's other comments that's just an explanation. Like, for instance, the adequate water, you know, what's adequate water? Well, as we say in the text, as opposed to matrix, adequate water is determined by NLL, IDD, IDQ, so on. So that deals with those comments. We already dealt with it. Comments about the Alpine Village, it's an explanation. This is not zoning, this is language doesn't. This is a comprehensive plan, so. You have to be able to figure out a way to do that as well. I mean, the change to the map, if there are going to be changes to the map, which I assume there will be, that's an easier, easier concern. Deal with. This is going to be obvious. Maps change.
I think the keyword idea is interesting. If we could assign multiple keywords to a comment that related to the topic, then you could filter on them.
yeah, it's a way to rather put it into one bucket, you can filter it by several.
It's similar to what he's saying with the lettering system, right?
Yeah.
A, B, C, D, whatever, but you can, however you want to tag it, whatever you want to call it. It's tagged. So if we got an email and the guy has 3 themes in there, he's gonna get 3 responses.
I'm just looking for a way to automate it so that we're not trying to have to go individually by, you know.
Yeah.
And rather than make it like a subjective based on what I think it means, if you pick specific keywords, then you automate that and say, okay, everything that mentions like suburban or densities or mixed use or something on those lines, that keyword tags those, because it could be several things at once. Is that something? I'm looking at Mike because I come up with these crazy ideas and then Mike has to make it happen.
I mean, it's definitely possible we would need all of
What the keywords are going to be.
beforehand.
Are we responding to each individual comment?
Probably collective response to a subject.
Where's the response going?
Well, the responses are going, I mean, so with the whole purpose of this is we're going to create the text and we're going to create a map, which is going to go to the county commissioners. So county commissioners need to understand that we've addressed all the comments one way or another.
Okay, so the only use we're gonna have for the comments besides taking them in and doing something with them on this commission. The only thing we're gonna do beyond that, as far as responses, is gonna be something to the county commissioners that says, here are these responses we received, and here is our response to them.
And that, I don't know that it needs to be directed to the BOCC, it's just for the public to see, it's part of the public record. We could have either, it could be included as appendix to the plan, just because here's the public involvement portion of the plan. Or just as a separate document that's gonna be out there hanging.
So there does need to be something on the public record that says, here are the
Yeah,
things we got, and here's how we responded to them.
absolutely.
So it could be in like one, maybe summary report that says, okay, here's the 361 comments. So many percentage with this, so many with this, and kind of here's our responses to whether each individually or to these categories of things. Is that kind of the end product we're gonna have?
Yeah, it would serve us well to have a separate paper essentially that says public involvement process for updating the comprehensive plan and talk about it, you know, it was the committees that were formed through those years, here's what happened with those, here's the comments of these 9 open houses, and so forth. Just document so that nobody can feel left out, because that's been one of the comments, oh, they didn't listen to my comment. Well, yeah, I think to answer your question, Eric, I don't. I at least am not envisioning that we write to every single person who made a comment or not responding to their. We're gonna respond by taking into consideration their comments, addressing the map or the text, whatever their comment was. Correct. So, and then, you know, we'll obviously submit as much information we think is relevant to the BOCC when we make a recommendation. But I think they need to see based on things I've listened to from the BOCC is that they need to see that we, you know, we've taken into consideration their comments and that we've either done something with them or we haven't. And if we haven't, well,
I know.
maybe you have to explain why, but the ultimate decision maker is the county commissioners. So. Unless they're client, so to speak. But they want to ensure that public involvement was conducted.
So my
395 comments probably. That's good. That's good.
Public
comment. Just if it's a comment, that's one thing. Do with it, that needs to be shown.
If we give you the tags that we want, then it's doable. You just need to listen to what we want tagged.
Yeah, we could take a shot at that. Either tonight or before next week or something.
It's a little bit more objective way to look at this.
Yeah.
Aside from this application, so are we on the consensus that individual logins, individual reviews, you guys not as a group? Do you want the ability to provide comments on this, or do you want to save that for the other map, the other application? We're talking these ideas. I want to make sure we're giving clear direction to GIS.
Yeah, I mean, you guys even want this where you guys are saying yes, that you reviewed it and reviewed it.
I'm not sure.
We're gonna have a
Quite
record.
honestly, I'm not sure I see a lot of value in that.
Okay,
Yeah, so we'll have a record.
I've looked at them all already,
Yeah.
but
these are, so the comments on this are reordered by kind of a geographic area. Mike was saying they start in the top left corner, they kind of work their way around the county.
Yeah, so as you go down the list, it
Sure.
should be all.
So they're in a different.
So comment
Comment
number
12 is
7
not
is
the
not
same
what it was
comment
2
12
days ago.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so like, starting at the northwest corner of the county and kind of taking the center of where their polygon was of their comment. So as you move further away from that northwestern part of the county, that's further down.
Okay.
So are you using, for this purpose, are you using the land use designation that's on the comment or geographic, what it would be using?
Yeah, so when they fill out, they had the ability to choose what they were commenting on. That's what this down here is based on.
Some of them don't have the land use designation.
Yeah, that's these others.
That's the other.
Yeah, 15% of them are the other one.
How much?
15%, 34 of the comments.
That no land use designation.
Yeah.
So we have. So what I'm getting, you guys want to take off the review and just go through and review all of this on your own, just take a look at each one. So then the other side of this is, I think we committed to the public to make this available to the public upon close of this public comments. So I want to get direction from you guys on how do we want to make this just essentially the same version without just open to the public? Do we have the same information? Well, name and record, or name and county resident and public comment, all of that, or what information do you want to have on the public viewer side of this?
Seems to me that if we're gonna do that, then we need to put a response on. Well, I think the context of, at least what I understood, the interest in seeing what the public comments were was so that there wouldn't be so much duplication. That's what I thought. Well, we're kind of beyond that now. Yeah. So I'm not sure what to make public comments open.
I know we'll get a number of public records requests for this information if we don't divulge it, but just a heads up. So. What does the rest of the commission think?
I don't see the value in posting it publicly, and if people want the information, we give it to them, but.
Were people aware that their comment was going to be posted publicly
I don't
when
know.
they
If we-
made the comment?
I don't think we made that as a disclaimer anywhere.
I mean, I don't know if there are people who might care about that. I don't know.
We can block out the name on each one of these on the public side. We don't have to, like I said, we don't
I
have to.
mean, some
divulge all the
people
information.
are making, there's not a large number of these, but some people are making comments with their name and with their specific parcel. They're even including their parcel number. There's a few comments with parcel.
I think there's an address and a phone number instead of two.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of those people may not really be happy about seeing that information be put up in the public domain. I don't. Because I don't recall us making a big deal out of, if you make this comment, it's gonna someday be up on the county website.
No. Never.
Okay.
I think it'd be good to make public that whatever summary we come up with that says, okay, out of the 200 and something we had, here's kind of what they were all about, and here's our response to them. That way we're not getting into very specific one-on-one. We don't have to spend time somebody going through and filtering out either names or addresses or phone numbers and whatnot, but we're still providing a response based on the comments we received.
The other application, the land use analysis tool. Which, I think some of you guys were on the commission when we developed that with GIS. I've provided Mike and he's pulling, I provided him the BLP information from 2024, so from last year. And then he's also pulling the assessor data from last year, so we can get, rather than a 5-year span of analysis, we're looking at 6 years. So I know that the trend on the BLP side, when I looked over that information, it's fairly flat from 23 to 24 on the number of dwelling units. It kind of shifts based on the type of dwelling unit, but rather than any peak or valley, we're seeing kind of a stagnant, or like a flattening of the numbers. So I'll, as I get that information available, he thinks he needs another couple of weeks to crunch all that and put it into that application. I'll start pulling and updating the tables for the text of the land use component. If you think we need anything else, I'm happy to entertain any other requests for information or updates.
I think it's gonna be fine.
I just have a question for Mike. So what we're looking at right here where it says not reviewed and all that, because I'm just looking at that map a couple hours ago. Then all of a sudden I had a bunch of things going like this and the screen was blank, so I didn't know what happened with it. Let it sit there and try to load, but it wouldn't. So is that taken down now? We're all gonna get this new one?
I'm not sure why you would be having issues with that other one. I know Chad was working on some stuff this morning, so I don't know if we.
I just pulled up the one we've been working off of with the 161 comments.
See, I had up to comment 254. In my office.
Weird.
No,
I'll have to do a screenshot.
Oh,
yeah.
you're talking the comment number on the left.
Yes.
Yeah, so during the first open house that we had here, there was issue reported where somebody said they tried to submit a comment and it didn't go through. And so the GIS office did a bunch of testing on that, and we submitted like almost 100 comments trying to break it more or less. And then we weren't able to break it. We had to delete all those out, and in that meantime, it sequentially kept adding up. So there'll be a big gap in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So stick with the number on the lower
If you
right.
look, it goes from like
It says
15 to like
161.
37, then to
Okay.
like 56 or
Yeah.
something like that. So there's some jumps.
All
Like I said, it's a beta version, so this is gonna be like your final version of all of that, so.
Okay.
I think that original beta version had a counter on it as well as the number of comments. Yeah.
61 in the lower right hand corner.
Yeah. And that accounts for the actual number, not the ones deleted out.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Yes.
So you want to remove the reviewed, not reviewed section and just go through and review it on your own and jot down your notes and
Just keep our own notes.
present any ideas you have, and then we can update an analysis and response.
When do you think we'll get the final 300 and whatever?
So the written comments, we don't have those mapped. Some of those have personal addresses on them. We could try to map those.
No, I don't need a map. I'm just wondering, when are we gonna get those to review? I've reviewed all the 161 here.
They're in
Will
the
I get to
drive.
review the other hundred?
We go to each area meeting.
Or just under the land use component in your drive. Look at public comments, and that's where we've been putting all of them.
Oh, they're all in
Does that
there?
include the cards that came from the open houses?
Like I said, that's what I was getting my admin to copy over, is the scanned cards. Right now, any written comments received are in under the open houses at each one of those locations.
Some of those-
I think you're good. Thanks,
Some of
Mike.
those, they're not,
Appreciate
there's no comments yet. And then the first one that was held here, there's a folder that says public comments at meeting or something, and there's 10 or so in that. But then the rest of them were formatted that way, they're individual comments.
Yeah. I think when I scanned them in, I was lazy and put them all in one. And then when I handed off to my
like
admin,
that
she
better.
put them individually, which is the right way to do it. So
Well,
I'll get them broken out.
I like how first way. I put them in a folder, I see them all sequentially and find them.
Whichever way you guys would like it. I thought it would be better to have them broken out by individuals, like we do all the other written comments.
Yeah,
So
and either way. How do we pull that map up that Michael just showed us?
Is there a link in the folder somewhere?
no, that one's still in draft. So they need a couple more days to finalize that information. Mike wanted to get some feedback from you on.
The email with the link. That's. Sure.
So what he just showed you is incorporating all the mobile data that we got. So that's still crunching the information. He said by the end of the week, he'll have that done. He's had some hiccups along the way as he tried to combine that information. So some of the comments were removed, some were duplicated, so they needed to verify the data set before they made it available for you guys. So once it's available, I'll shoot you guys over
It would
the.
be great if we could. You know, if we got the original comment. And then it went to. You know, one of the commissioners and they sent it to us. We could eliminate those duplications, that would really be great.
I can start reviewing the 395 written comments and try to remove duplications.
I mean, on my county email, I've had lots of comments directed to me, so that everybody else has too, right? Yeah, those are all good.
Probably.
Same comment, but.
Yeah.
What it appears, and this is speculation on my point, is that someone put together like a QR code or something of the sort where someone could scan it, pick from 1 to 5 different comments, and then it shot an email off to all of us individually. Because I got a bunch into my inbox, of which I turned into PDFs and dropped in as public comments. I don't know for certain that all of those are that I've received, you've also received. So at this point, there's been so many duplicated, emails that it'd be a mountainous task to try to evaluate everything that the 7 of you got, that I got, and the county commissioners all received. Some of those have been forwarded to me, and anything that's gotten forwarded to me or their planning inbox, we've dropped in as a public comment. Some of those are duplicates based on, but they're sent individually to individual commissioners. I know for the ones I received, it said Director DeBell, and then it had like a canned 1 of 5 different comments. So I'm sure the ones who are sent to you are sent directly to you with a name. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
But that would only be one comment though, right?
No, it's one comment sent 9 different times or 10 different times. 11.
Comment,
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, one guy who, in succession, every 2 minutes, he sent the same email, 5 in a row, over a 12-minute period. But that was about, who knows? There was no change. All right.
I know anything I've gotten, I've responded to, said your comments received for the land use component of the comprehensive plan, something generic like that. Most of those emails got kicked back to me saying like they can't receive an email. So I I think anything with the grassroots email address, all those got kicked back. There might have been a couple other ones too.
All right, so we've got the 161 we can access now. By the end of the week, we should have all the mobile ones also available to us. And then we've got the stuff that you've loaded into the folders. We all individually will go out and review those as commissioners. And how do we bring those back in as a?
Well, did we decide that we need to come up with a list of keywords,
So the keywords will
the
work
idea?
for the map data.
right?
I can try to get through these with keywords on the PDF version from the emails, but
Well, those are gonna, I mean, based on I assume we all got the same emails, but those all fall into a very small number of unique comments that I think we should also put in keywords. I mean, a large number of them had to do with the waterfront lot issue, the adequate water and sewer issue, the Alpine Village engineering issue. I mean, that probably covered 98% of the ones that I got, those three comments.
Yeah, you know, that whole, you know, getting rid of the 3,000 foot, you know, for the Alpine Village. That's already covered for the whole county in 12-7. That's our geotechnical analysis is required on any slopes that's 30%. It's already covered. We don't need to go ahead and reiterate that in the comp plan. It's already in ordinance.
What that needs to be, that's just an explanation category of an explanation.
Right,
Just saying.
right.
Yeah.
It's not gonna result in a change.
So I'll ask the question again, maybe a little different. How do we want to deal with the issue of getting keywords? First, identify what they are so that they're consistent. And then how are we going to get them tagged to the appropriate comments so that we can filter them accordingly? Do we want to go away and try to come up with a list of candidate keywords and somehow harmonize those across the 7 of us, or I don't know, what do we want to do about that?
I think that'd be best as we review the comments in this next week and a half, is come up with what we see. It could be the major land use definitions, there's probably some of the keywords. And then if we want to do waterfront density, you know, some of those other ones that we see common themes, we bring them back. Hey, what themes do you see? And we can decide real quick on what they are. I think it would be pretty efficient that way.
Everybody take a shot at it.
there's some concerns about road networks, water sewer capacity,
Oh, absolutely.
wetlands,
It's-
wildfire,
There's been a number of
water
problems.
quality. Like those are some of the ones I can pick out.
Yep.
So my.
So some homework. Well. Yeah, but some of those things, some of the comments regarding sewer, for instance, deal with an overall arching issue, like for instance, the recreation definition.
Mhm.
There's some comments in there saying, well, there's not an adequate study of sewers or water or whatever. So I mean, yep, I think breaking it out by land use designation is pretty good. But that's gonna be a good start.
Okay. So he'll be able to filter, so that pie that you saw on the page, you can just click on that and it'll filter everything on the comments to whatever that land use designation was. And then you can review it based on that. I can talk to him about trying to map any of the PDFs. It would just take a lot of manual entry, just say that. I don't know if that's a good use of our time or not. So how would you guys like me to handle the written comments?
I don't see any value in that.
One thing you can
I'd be
do
more interested in having the keywords on.
the written document, on the written comments
Yeah,
themselves.
because they're probably gonna fall into the same categories in general, right?
I had
Um,
the ability to lump them all into one giant PDF. And then we can search there and see if we can add. They took away my Adobe Pro. I now have a application called Foxit. It's not as good. So I'll see if that functionality exists in Foxit to try and add keywords or something along this line. So I'll see if I can push the limits of this new application.
And I don't know if it's helpful, I'll just throw myself out there, but in order to save you guys a whole lot of time and trying to do what I know I'm gonna do anyway, and that is review all the comments, I'd be happy to go through as I review them and say, okay, this one includes waterfront, this one includes slopes, this one includes. And I'll just kind of make up a the categories as I see fit. I mean, since unless we're gonna come up as a group with what categories we want to lump things into.
Can you put that into a nice spreadsheet?
Oh, good God, Don, what are we gonna use the spreadsheet for? As long as we're taking the comments, digesting them, and then responding.
Just to categorize it all, put it in.
Yeah, actually, there's not that many. I'd be happy to, really.
Yeah, I mean, because then you can put the categories across the top and then commenters
Yeah.
down the side, just to here they are. Because it's
Because I mean,
basis for all.
We individually have to read them and digest them anyway, so rather than add more work to you or somebody else, I'll be happy to go through there and categorize things and then summarize them.
So Don, you're
Whichever
thinking
way
like
to sum
a
it.
list of everyone that's provided comments?
A list of
One way
all
to
the
do it.
slope comments. There
Yeah.
was 30% slope comments, 50% waterfront comments. Something like that, right?
Something like that. There's a number of ways to do it, for sure.
All right.
And does that save you guys
All
from
of our
having to do
announcements.
something like that?
Let's chat it over and let me I can probably put something together and if I can
Well,
get
let's
some
chat
help on
after the
reviewing
meeting.
it. Yeah,
But between the two of us, I can probably save you guys some time.
we do have some applications we're reviewing as well.
Are we done with
Some other
announcements?
stuff. I think I got through everything I wanted to tell you. So updating the land use analysis tool. So I'll get you that data as soon as I have it. We talked through the public comments where we're at, some ideas. I think that's the majority.
Need to address the concern brought up at the BOCC today about whether there should be a joint meeting, joint.
Yeah, so there was some discussion during the public comment section of the board's meeting this morning. Where they were entertaining an idea to hold a joint public open house, I think, with the planning commission and the board. It was deliberated on and I don't think they're going to. I think they asked my opinion. I sent an email off to the board and told them, I think they need to let you guys finish your review and your process on this. I think you've laid out your process fairly well. You need to complete that. And I gave them again and from one of them, at least I'm sure it was the first time we saw it, but we put together a process by which each component would be reviewed. So after, for the new folks here, after you complete your public hearing, we then hold a workshop with the board. It wasn't open for public comment, the previous ones. This is more of and I'm not sure if the board's going to change that or not, so we'll leave it up to them.
Well,
but it's an
the issue really is whether or not it makes any sense at all to have a workshop with the commissioners when we haven't decided what recommendations are going to be.
Right. I think the idea was that some people are gonna attend an open house with the board there. Versus with just the planning commission. I'm not sure if the rest of the board
I think
agreed
the
with that.
context of that was nobody showed up or very few people showed up at workshops. We didn't have much public input. I think what needs to happen is that the board needs to know that we have over 300 comments that we're going through. So it's not a lack of public input.
Mhm.
There's plenty of public input.
Okay.
And we'll get more, next time we have a hearing. All right. I would just suggest that maybe we tell, how many public comments we actually have.
Okay, I can reply to the board and let them know as well. I was planning on giving them that number at my update meeting last week, but that meeting was canceled.
All right, so we've done our announcements. So now we're moving right along to the consent agenda. Anybody have any comments?
I totally forgot.
Suggestions or modifications to the minutes of November 19th, 2024? Hearing none, those minutes are approved. Move to the workshop, which is a comprehensive plan. And we'll deal with land use component, land use animation, matrix, and map. I suggested that we could deal with it tonight, hopefully. Dave mentioned this earlier, but I believe that the matrix needs to be eliminated. It's caused a lot of confusion on the public. Anytime you try to summarize what's in the text, you're going to leave something out, and somebody's going to see that, and they're going to say, well, why isn't this in there? And we've seen a lot of that with regard to this matrix. So I see no purpose in the matrix. The land use component itself is not very long. People come back and read it, and that's what they should do, they should read it. Including the map. I say the only thing that I would say that may have to be added to the land use designations are the applicable zonings districts that go with each designation. But other than that, I say we eliminate the land use matrix.
Agreed.
The other thought that occurred to me after we had that discussion was you could also just reduce it to a simple table of the applicable zones for each land use designation. Nothing else. And if that's easier to do than going in, because I think that's the only information that shows up in the matrix that does not show up in the text.
Right.
Is the applicable zones for each land use designation.
They could easily be included.
It could be, you could either be included in the text, or that's a very easy thing to do in a table.
People are gonna go to the shortcut and think, well, that's it, that's all there is,
Yeah,
and then miss everything else, so.
And once again, I went ahead and already made that edit, Alan, if you want me to just send it out for review and then you could talk about it at the next meeting. I'm happy to send it out, but I took everything out of the matrix, made sure it was all in the written portion, including the applicable zones.
There you go.
And then I deleted the matrix and now everything is just in the written portion.
Was that all you added to the regulations?
I think that was all that was missing. I just made sure that whatever was in the matrix was replicated in the written portion, so we didn't miss anything. And then I was gonna ask this group, okay, is there anything else we want to either add or subtract from that? But all I've done is just made sure that what's in the matrix is now written into the description. That's it.
Do we have a copy of that in our shared drive where we can pull it up?
Not there yet.
I did not send it out yet because
There was some mistakes in the actual zones, I think. Did you correct that, Jake? I think you did.
We took one, the rural service center.
Yeah, the rural service center was in the rural residential.
But I thought we took that out months
You did.
ago.
It never got updated in the draft online. I
Oh.
updated that, I think in
That's what I'm looking
January.
at right now, it's not there, so.
that's not the August 24th version that's online that you've updated.
It is.
That is the good one. Okay, that's the one I used when I did the edits that I just did this last week.
That's the one I'm looking at, and it's not, it's been limited.
Okay, so that's what I started with. And I got rid of the matrix, like I said, and just make sure everything was in the written descriptions.
Okay, so then the next one I would suggest we talk about is, the rural residential, or rural resort, I guess it's called. Designation that we applied to numerous waterfront properties. And, so the issue there, as I see it, is that well, first of all, the terminology we probably shouldn't have used resident, recreational resort, we should have used some other designation, but. The problem there, I think, is the zoning, doesn't match up with what we had in mind, which was to make consistent the smaller, fully developed lots, and the one. Because most of them are already designated recreation. And the thought was to make the ones that are consistent with that, the same designation. As I see it, we can either, try to deal with it from a zoning standpoint at some point in time and leave it as it is. Or we can change it and leave it the way it was. Or we can create a new designation. And zoning that goes with that. For instance, we could do a recreation residential. Which would have a different zoning criteria. I don't know, like zoning language into the land use designation, but we can try to do that. Or we can.
That's what it's gonna come down to, is there a significant difference that needs to be addressed in a category and then a zone?
Well,
those
the
small
concern of a lot of the comments that we got was. That the density. That the current. Recreation density. Would allow for some further subdivision of small lots, which. It's probably not accurate, but it's accurate to some extent. You had an acre lot. Under the current zoning, if you had. Urban sewer, urban sewer or urban water, you could then, the minimum size is 20,000 square feet. So basically, that's half an acre.
Yeah.
More or less, so you could basically make 2 lots out of 1 acre. Anything less than an acre, you could something like. The other problem is the use table. Provide for some commercial uses that are recreation oriented. And that was a concern with a lot of the comments. So, it seems to me that there's different implications of doing whatever, they do. A lot of the comments that dealt with this issue basically said, let's leave it as legal non-conforming. Let's leave it. Rule 5, legal non-conforming. Well, okay. Is that also the approach we're going to take countywide?
Yeah, because this issue, many of the comments did state it countywide, concerns, river frontages, it
So is
concerns
there,
Andre,
do we eliminate, if we go back to the Rule 5 designation, even though the lots are sometimes less than a quarter of an acre, or any less than half an acre, currently legal non-conforming. But I don't know how they got developed, that's way on my history.
history.
I don't know how that stuff got developed into, lots that are 0.33 acre,
There's some that are 0.12.
0.12, 0.14. Great. But interestingly enough, some of the comments that are the most concerning are the ones people have smaller lots. I mean, very small lots, like a third of an acre. But anyway, but do we leave it as not legal non-conforming? If we do, is that just going to apply to the waterfront lots? Or do we look at that from a wide perspective?
And it's not just the rec zone then.
No.
And see, and here's the problem, and I don't think people understand this at all. They're saying leave those waterfront lots zoned as rural residential. They're not looking at the use tables. Conditionally permitted are gun clubs, racetracks, slaughterhouses, shingle mills. There must be 30 different commercial uses that are conditionally permitted in the rural 5 zone, as well as the ag 10 zone. It is a whole slew of them. You gotta look through the, the commercial use table, industrial use, the public use, natural resource based use, accessory use tables. It goes on and on and on. I counted them, there's somewhere between 20 and 30. And so you kind of gotta, well, okay, yeah, let's leave it rural 5. Okay, well, then some can go ahead and gun clubs are not prohibited. They're conditionally permitted. All these things, slaughterhouses, you name it, the list goes on and on and on.
That falls into the same category though, where the realistic chance of any of that happening is approximately 0.
But, and so that's where I'm
On these
going at,
waterfront lots,
right, and so that's where I'm going at as
Preference
well.
to value.
By looking at these recreational zones, because we have so many of those lots out there that are currently zoned rec. What are we gonna do with those?
Yeah.
You know,
Leave them that way.
you gotta leave those zone rec as rec.
I know it feels like a complication, but the idea of creating a recreational residential designation has some appeal to me, and use that for the ones that are already rec and the ones that are not rec currently, but are already at that kind of density.
And so then how are we're gonna have to kind of look forward to see exactly how we're gonna then go ahead and at some point create a residential rec zoning.
But so then in the context of zoning, the other crazy thought that's crossed through my mind is suburban applicable?
I have thought the same thing.
It's the similar density, right?
Right, well, it is, but instead of 12,000, it's 10,000. Then you have to go ahead and look at those use tables, what you're allowed permitted and what's prohibited in that suburban district.
Bring that notebook.
I have it upstairs. I can go and grab it.
I have the use tables there. Yeah. Fair enough.
I mean, none of these
I look at
alternatives are.
suburban.
No,
I look at suburban, I don't think that solves the problem. Yeah, you could divide it into two. You could even get a smaller lot. Suburban.
right.
I don't think that's the, I mean, that's the answer.
You're talking about the difference between 10 and 12,000.
Yeah,
For the service.
Also, I mean, suburban also has duplexes, but, yeah. Mobile home parks.
And it seems to me, just to jump ahead a little bit here, that once we get to these use tables and the whole zoning, probably gonna need to be a whole bunch of cleanup done there anyway, so let's continue to focus on the way the comp plan map should look. Regardless of perhaps in some instances where a use table says you can build a
resort.
club, because maybe that gets
Yeah.
removed in the future.
Sure. And, you know, even marinas, public marinas, you know, you have to really dig deep. They're not just permitted. You can just go do it. For the densities and the access and everything. The likelihood of that happening on any one of those small parcels that we identify on the map is virtually zilch.
So the question is, and I think we cut the map back to just the existing lots, small lots, not the larger lots by inclusion between two sets of smalls.
Right.
So that eliminates that specter of, well, they're gonna take that 5 acre parcel and make it a new marina with a 16 story condo.
Right.
That's still R5 or some cases ag forest 20. Yeah. I don't. There's just so many things that people didn't have the complete view of the code or the comp plan that they then commented, and the comment is not necessarily relevant, but incomplete, based on true reading of the code or the comp plan.
So it seems like the way to address it most directly would be, I'll go back and say, create a recreational residential land use designation, and that is going to require a new zoning district to be defined when we get there, which will then, we'll have to address its use table.
But that's just a name change is what you're talking about now.
But
Well, it would allow us to put
designation,
that designation on the properties that are along the waterfront that are already, let's just say, sub 1 acre. I don't know what dividing line was, but all of those half acre, quarter acre nominal lots that we put into recreational resort. Put them in recreational residential, and what that does is it addresses the concern that people have about commercial uses being mixed in those areas.
so we would
So
have-
I mean, that doesn't happen until we do the zone change, because you
Well,
have to create the zone and you have to create the use table, but looking ahead, we would say, that zone and that use would only be strictly residential, no commercial use.
So if we did that, then we'd have to put that caveat in there. Little message, this will be, just like you said, we're gonna have to put up a new zone district. And
That can be part of the vision of the comp plan, is we're going to create that new zone
Even-
district.
even
and
some goal or policy statement
Yeah.
under land use
Yeah.
to say, develop a zone for
Right.
residential.
Right.
Because you'd have to do it so that people can understand that there's a justification for it.
Right.
So the argument for creating a whole nother designation, as opposed to just leaving it non-conforming as an example, is so that
Well, I would go back to Matt's comment a few minutes ago. The desire to just leave it as in rural residential doesn't really address people's underlying concern, because there's all sorts of things that can happen under rural residential that are commercial. Some of them.
well, the number one argument I saw for not doing that was increased density. It wasn't just because they didn't want commercial. That was a big part of it, but
Well,
increased density was the number one theme I saw.
But
The increased density to me is, I'm not sure that's an accurate comment, because the lots, unless we did it wrong and put that designation on some lots where we shouldn't have. Our intention was to put that designation on lots that were already in that sub 1 acre density. So
And
they're
some
not
of them
going to get any
were-
denser.
Some that were zoned that way that were larger, we took away.
Yeah.
And changed
And
our-
then the reality is, I think, I don't know, I guess we didn't really look at whether or not they already had a home on it as a criteria.
Not always.
No, but I think
The vast majority of them do.
Yeah.
And, you
95%
know,
of them do.
we're talking, these are six-figure homes. They're not gonna get bought and redeveloped in something different. Economically, that's not gonna happen.
I don't know. I saw a lot of lots up there that are 1 acre that. For the amount of money they can get for a lakefront 1 acre parcel, I bet a lot of people would come in and tear down what's there and put in
Oh, it's already, that's
a
already.
condo or something like that.
But people
Well,
want those lots.
Can't do that.
Well, but I'm saying increase the density somehow.
But that use would be, that's a reason to. Change this to create a recreational residential land use designation with a new zone that goes along with it, that only allows basically single family homes, doesn't allow condos, doesn't allow duplexes, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean,
Doesn't
I could
allow
go for
commercial
that.
uses,
Yeah.
because that was fundamentally, that's the concern.
Yeah, I could go for
I
that.
think that's the one way to really address that.
Right, Right, and then you really narrow it down to exactly the uses that you want in those locations.
That cleans up what's there now and also addresses all the comments and concerns about either commercialization or density.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Well, but the issue is going to be, I think, that the zoning isn't there.
Well, true, but this is a comment. Again, put that caveat in there saying, you know, to make this.
Okay, so we would,
It's gonna
we
have to
would
have
put
a
in,
zoning.
you know, Jake, you can tell me whether this is appropriate, but. We would put in the land use designation for recreation residential. That they should be, for instance, 1 acre lots, commercial uses. And that the zoning should reflect that. When it's developed. Well, maybe we have to address, maybe allow docks. Because, oh, sure, 95% of those houses have docks already. Well, one rural residential doesn't allow that, so
We don't regulate docks, only marinas.
why is it in there then? As a permitted use.
I have no idea. The only time we,
Clean up when we get to that part, huh?
the only time we get to it is on floodplain development permits, but
Yeah.
as far as land use goes, those are all permitted through IDL.
Right.
Unless it's a marina, then that's. Marinas right now are in the public use table, they should probably be in the commercial use table. But that's the only time and it's really, we're regulating the parking and upland accommodations.
Yeah.
And then we usually put a condition saying they need to get a permit for the dockage for the marina from IDL. If they have it. But, so you're talking about adding a zoning district for
Land use district.
Well,
a land use
and
designation?
then it's followed by a zoning
Follows
district.
by the zoning district.
Okay. So you were saying a 1 acre minimum or half acre minimum
That's an acre.
or an acre? So then you have like a disparity between the current resort district, which would allow a 12,000 square foot lot. And what would be a residential, which would be a much larger lot. So if you're leaning towards the commercial and public uses should happen in the resort. Or the recreation resort district, then you'd think those are gonna be larger pieces of property. For resorts, right? Not the 12,000 square foot minimums right now.
Well, and if we try to put a 1 acre minimum, we're automatically gonna be go ahead and create even more nonconformity. And I don't know if that's wise.
It doesn't hurt.
The small lots that are there, what's the average size? I don't know,
Well,
and it's gotta
And-
reflect, we're trying to reflect reality.
and how many of them have sewer?
Right.
Yeah, oh, that could be most of
Us
them
do.
subset.
Because
I'm
that's,
talking at Priest Lake, there's one area that we designated, had this designation that was, you should know, that was a sandpiper. Sewers and Beaver Creek. They don't have a sewer. The other areas have sewer.
There's many lots around Ponderay's shoreline. They were created eons ago, and they're 1 acre, they're half acre, they're quarter acre, they're 1/10 of an acre. They've got secondary lots with their septic system on it and that kind of stuff, so, I mean, all that stuff. You know. Down in Elliott Bay and everything. They're there too, and they need to be dealt with, and so we did the designation on those. I mean, we connected them all, but then took out left the gaps, but. So it's broader than just Priest Lake.
Mhm.
Coca-Cola's got the same thing. Like a
We'll
little
figure
bigger
out
Coca-Cola, but
a lot of it's suburban.
yeah, well, that's another issue. And that's all suburban. All of it, most of it.
Well, that's a valid issue. I mean, you create a recreation residential and you put a 1 acre minimum, which is. But then solve the density issue. But then you leave a lot of lots of non-conforming. But I don't think which is achievable to go with the lowest common denominator. Because you're getting a cost that are, like 0.14 acres. That are on the line.
Yeah.
So it's just-
And we have some 1/4 acre lots in the forest 40 zone right now, so it.
They're everywhere. Well, I mean, so then the issue is that, well, if you can still end to have non-conforming lots, then why don't we just leave it for residential?
Leave it the way it is.
I think the fear most people have is just change, right? They're not looking at the use tables like what Matt suggested. They're looking at a color on a map and they're saying, I don't want to see any change.
And they see the result, they see the word result.
Yeah.
A lot of times what they're looking at is that somebody told them this is gonna be a terrible thing.
You could change the naming convention of that land use description.
This designation is gonna create 560 waterfront lots on this way.
That is one option, just leave all that the way it is. But put a comment, our own comment or a goal or something to say. Just that, explain it, in order to. Deal with the small lots, the existing small lots and potential. Or, more density or whatever. A goal to. Look into it further, whatever.
Oh, you can just commit to reviewing the use tables,
Yeah.
and that's another way to accomplish it, right? And the density tables in 4.1 and 2.
Where would we put that?
I mean, we could do that as well, like you said.
Well,
Of course, we can't put that in the comp plan, the uses in the comp plan, that goes in ordinance. I was always told, but we could still call it recreational resort, but then take those commercial. Go ahead and create a standard in the use table, substandard 22. That in order for a marina, you have to have this and this and this and this, you have so many acres, you have to have 2 ingress, egress, you have to have so much water and sewer hookups.
You have development standards.
Development standards. That would be one way to do it. I don't think that would pacify all those comments.
it's expected that it might happen. Some rich
Right.
guy's gonna come in and do it. And
Right.
still result in the. Pollution of the lake.
But there's nothing stopping the planning commission from making a change to the minimum lot size of the current resort community or the resort district, right? You can go through and if you find it more appropriate that it should be a 1 acre or minimum lot. 1 acre minimum lot size, the 12,000 square feet, based on the amount of public comments is just gonna be too small. It makes a bunch non-conforming, but it also changes the perception of that zone moving forward.
But then that would also impact all those other areas that are on the waterfront that are zone recreational resort.
Sure. You can change the comp plan designation and then modify that density in the use tables before you change the zone.
I think one of the things we should do with absolute certainty is we should take the resort out of it. Because a lot of people saw resort and thought, oh my God, a new resort, they're gonna have a Hilton on waterfront. Yeah, it's a PR brand. Well, I'm not sure why we allowed that in there, but we should just go back to recreational community.
What do we have before? It was like Alpine. I'm looking at Daniel, because I think he knows these two. Yeah, Alpine community and resort community, and I think you merged those two into
Right. But
recreational resort.
You can't just say recreation.
Okay.
Recreational. Take the resort out. But I think that's, that's not the major problem. That's a problem. That's perception sometimes.
Yeah.
I think given the hornet's nest we've stirred up, that's not gonna pass muster to just do that, but.
No.
Not just
I'm not
that,
saying
but
Still,
certainly.
We do.
Yeah.
Well, the other way to approach this is, we leave it the way it is, get the comp plan, hopefully make whatever changes we have to make in other places and address this later. With a comprehensive. That's the one word, but. Land use designation coupled with a solution
At the same time.
at the same time. Which we can't do right now. Sure.
Yep, you have a couple of things on your docket once this gets done. I know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? One is your implementation component, the goals, policies, and objectives. And then from there, you were gonna move to the use tables and densities tables.
Well. We don't have.
No, we don't. I think that's what we had talked about
Things
previously.
on the plate, yeah. Plus, I think we do need to keep refreshing our tasks for the future and prioritizing.
So,
Because we're
so
still.
what's the thought? Should we leave it right now? Just leave it? Row 5,
Or whatever it was before.
whatever it was.
Scrap the potential designation of rural recreation. And just leave the around the full count.
There were some split designated areas. So I can. So I think we were trying to follow property lines to the best extent possible. I'm thinking even like around Pinto Point and other spots around the lake, there were some spots where like properties were cut in half between two different land use district or designations. So we'll want to clean those ones up at the bare minimum, right?
Or just,
Yeah.
Okay.
But again,
we just go to the
Existing designation, not this proposed.
Sure.
I guess you go to the higher one, right?
I mean, generally, these are smaller lots already, so logic would say that you would designate them as resort, right?
Well, I mean, that's the problem, I tell. A lot of these lots are smaller lots, there's just no getting around it. And some of the areas that complain the loudest have the smallest lots. Like the Kalispell area, some of those lots are. West of like one.
Your mic's dead, I'm gonna.
But that's, but they've been designated as recreation. So I don't know, when was the current map? 2008,
2005,
2005.
the land use map.
So
yeah.
they've at least been designated.
No, it's
since
dead. There's a
2005.
red light on it. I think I responded to that. The batteries are dead on the microphone. I did reply a couple of times during these public open houses, which is, I think some people were really afraid. There was some, I remember down in Blanchard, people were concerned about the resort expanding beyond the fence, right? They thought the fence was the edge. When they saw the map went further past the fence, they were really concerned. I said, well, it's been designated like that since 2005. It's not been changed in, close to 20 years.
So anything that's designated recreation. In 2005, we keep the same.
Sure. And then any spots we saw as, not following a lot line or a property line, we want to follow that. Okay, I can work with GIS to see if I can make some of those changes.
I'm okay with that approach. Agreed.
Okay. And so we just limited like 60% of the comments.
Yeah.
All right, so
More than that, when you think about the matrix change.
yeah,
70%.
all right,
And the
so
geotechnical,
Yeah.
that was a lot.
what else we want to deal with tonight? So let's looking at my list here. There were some comments regarding mixed use. Do we want to deal with that?
Yes. The mixed use, I took a really close look at that. But if you look at our current transitional language and the mixed use language, they dang near mirror each other 100%. Matter of fact, the transition currently says urban like water and sewer. And we changed it in the mixed use to say adequate water and sewer as by the, determined by those agencies. I think that's a more strict language than what we currently have in there. But all those
Are there
uses-
any areas that we designated mixed use that weren't previously transitioned? I think there were.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, some of the sub areas identified areas that they wanted.
Well, I could think we had comments about two specific parcels. One in Sagal, one in Selly.
Yep.
That have commercial uses on them currently that are operating under CUPs. And there was a concern about when we make them transition. The requirement, and then assuming we follow up eventually with a zone change, the logical sort of zone change you make. When we make that, the transition land use designation, that the requirement for the CUP goes away. The one in Selly is an island. It's an individual property and it's bordered all around by ag forest. that one I would propose we leave as ag forest and make it legal non-conforming, and they still have to use the CUP.
Which one is that?
That's the one in Selly. And there's a comment that identifies the parcel specifically.
Which one?
It's on Shingle Mill Road.
It's the shingle mill, I think is what it is, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it was also on the other properties off of Holden Culver. There's two properties up there that are islands as well. Basically, in the transition, didn't cover those, but the mixed use took in the quarries and pits.
Yeah.
Added to the existing transition. We started that whole discussion was transition from what to what? What did we transition? We didn't know.
Yeah.
So,
And if I can add something right here, because you just remind me of something regarding those gravel pits. I think the public needs to be aware, because they were saying you're taking a legal non-conforming use and making it a legal conforming use.
Right.
That's not true on gravel pits and mines. Gravel pits and mines are not a permitted use in the commercial or industrial zones.
Yeah.
They're not
Still
creating a legal conforming use. But I changed those to a mixed use designation. Those have to- those would-
They have a CUP or they?
Nope, no CPs.
What?
Grandfather.
Where are gravel pits permitted at? I think it's in the higher, or the lower density zones or what?
Yes,
I'd have to look.
you can get a conditional use for a gravel pit in the industrial,
yeah.
but they're not permitted. They're not a permitted use. They're prohibited in the commercial district,
Right, but industrial, they were.
Industrial, they're-
conditionally
That's
permitted.
why I remember back in, I don't know, it was 19 or 18. Milton was suggesting that all the pits be.
Yeah.
Claimed or designated commercial or industrial and zoned industrial.
Right.
So that would fit it, but
Right, but if you look at that progress down, playing checkers 2 or 3 moves ahead, they're conditionally permitted. You still have to go get a conditional use permit on a grandfather mine to make it conform.
Only if you want to expand it.
Only if you want to.
yeah,
Two
two
issues
issues
had a
with the
couple of-
pits, expansion and plant mix.
Right.
Plant mix.
In the plant mix, that can be adjusted just like you're talking about in the use tables.
Yeah.
I understand some of the public's concerns about an asphalt plant being permitted in an industrial zone. In that 2018 ordinance, it said one of the stipulations, it had to be in an industrial zone and in conjunction with an active mine. Well, that got made void by the courts, but the language remained from prior that an asphalt plant has to go in an industrial zone. You can go put an asphalt plant in tomorrow on any piece of property in Bonner County that is zoned industrial. You don't need a CUP for it. If you already have that industrial zone, you can go put that thing in tomorrow. We should go ahead and change that use table to state that asphalt plants have to be conditionally permitted in the industrial zone instead of permitted. That's one of the things I think that's catching a lot of people
Yeah.
in a lot of the comments.
It was the underlying comment really, other than expansion.
Right.
It was the main thing. Don't allow an asphalt plant in our backyard.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Just that use table.
Yeah.
So the other,
I'm looking at the industrial use table.
It's actually in the natural resource use.
The resource-based use table?
Yes,
Yeah.
resource-based use table.
And it's conditionally permitted. In forest, ag forest, rural. Industrial, recreational, and alpine village. There must be some caveats to putting a gravel pit in an ag alpine village.
How many footnotes are
Yeah.
attached to that C? Yeah.
You're looking at rock crushing operations?
I'm looking at that category.
I don't even see, so you're talking about a batch plant or are you talking about?
Batch.
Batch ones.
I don't even see it.
That plant is permitted only in industrial.
Right, so we need to go ahead
Where do you see that?
underneath the
Resource table. Which is under 12-336.
I don't see that.
Three six. No, you were looking at 3.6. but what version of you can
Oh, when I print it off. It's permitted in industrial.
Right, and so my suggestion, and I talked with staff about this a couple different times, is we need to go ahead and address that in the use tables. That those batch plants can only be conditionally permitted in the industrial zone. Because like I said, right now, go find a piece of property that is zoned industrial, put your batch plant in tomorrow, it's permitted.
Yeah, but what we're not even dealing with that here. We're dealing with a land use designation of mixed use.
Yeah, but
So-
the comments,
I
many
know the
comments.
comments, but the comments deal with zoning, not land use designations.
I understand that.
So, you know, that's an issue that we see, you know, kind of throughout the comments, is that there's a confusion between zoning and land use designations. This is a land use designation. Unless we want to create a separate designation for industrial. I mean, we can't deal with that now. We're not dealing with zoning. I mean, so really the issue here is whether it's appropriate to have, you know, those areas in mixed use, and I think it is. I mean, it's higher density residential, commercial, industrial, and light industrial.
Well,
land uses.
which ones are we talking about now?
The batch plant.
Well, no, which areas are we talking about? See, I think I brought up this issue with two parcels that have been identified that are currently operating under CUP.
Yeah.
One example in Selly, it's an individual parcel surrounded by ag forest. We changed, it's currently, I think, ag forest. We changed it to the mixed use because we recognize that's the use that's there. And then, I mean, you have to think ahead to the zoning, because eventually the zoning is going to probably be changed to correspond to the new land use designation. It's going to be something that permits that commercial use without a CUP, and that was a concern of the neighbors. Because through the CUP process, they have conditions imposed on their operation that the neighboring people are happy with. They don't want to see them go away, I guess, let's put it that way. I don't want to put words in their mouth. And in that case where it's an island, my recommendation would be we should have left it as ag forest, leave it as a legal non-conforming use. The CUP will remain in effect. The zone will never change. Well, I would say never, the zone will change and the CUP will remain in effect. Those neighbors will be happy.
Well, so then should we apply that same logic to every CUP area that's?
No, I don't know. So the next example I wanted to talk about was the Northern Lights property.
Exactly.
The Northern Lights property is in an area that I think should be mixed use. It's within the corridor, either side of 95, that the Sagal Sub-Area Committee identified to be, they called it transition because they didn't rename it, but it's in the corridor that they
And it's right
identified
on
to be
highway.
mixed use. That's what belongs in that corridor, quarter mile, I think we said, either side of 95. The issue is more generally that property is the boundary between mixed use and rural residential. And so the adjoining properties have a concern. There's a CUP in place. It has, I haven't looked it up. I don't know what the conditions are, but I assume it has some conditions about hours of operation or noise or lighting or something that they don't want to see those go away. So in the spirit, I mean, one of the themes we heard over and over again, preserve the rural character. Should we be thinking about doing something about those boundary conditions between a mixed use area and a rural residential area in general, not just specifically that parcel, but in general?
How would you do it, that parcel?
I mean, I think you had mentioned maybe we should have require a CUP everywhere. That's one solution. Another solution might be to have requirements for landscape screening and lighting control. would be another solution. I don't know. Or don't change it. I mean, that is a sort of easy brute force solution for us in this specific instance would be to not change the land use designation on that parcel.
Do we have Jake, do we have some kind of a list of CUPs?
Of like what's permitted as conditional.
No, I mean, these are only the two examples that have been brought to our attention. I think where Alan is headed is, are there other examples where we've inadvertently changed the land use designation in such a way that if we eventually do change the zoning accordingly, the requirement for a CUP will go away?
So I discussed this idea with legal counsel, and it was determined that if right now it's been permitted through a CUP with specific conditions, and then later the zoning changes to allow it as outright, the more permissive side would follow. So if, let's say they had a limitation on hours of operation based on their CUP of, 8 AM to 5 PM, but the zoning description doesn't have a limitation on hours of operation, and the more permissive regulation would apply. Does that answer your question?
So the issue then is, but how many of those CUPs would be eliminated if the zoning changed?
So we're working on a way to map out all of our land use applications. We're not complete with that. It's following a major upgrade we're working on, so I don't have all that data on hand. I can work on seeing if we can extrapolate something out of our current software, but it would only be from 2018 to current.
And may I make a suggestion?
Sure.
I think you only need to identify those areas where we're thinking about as proposing as mixed use.
Yeah, but and we're gonna have to, I don't know what those are, so I'd have to pull all the CUP, map it, and then compare that to the proposed to give you like a more definite answer. It's something I can do for sure.
So I mean, another solution would be to require a CUP for properties that are in mixed use, but border rural residential or ag forest. I mean, I'm just kicking out ideas. I'm not wedded to anyone.
That would have
Well,
to
I
be,
think
that
that
would have
would
to
be every
be
single
zoning.
parcel out there.
In the case of Sagal, it'd be a lot of them, because a lot of them are on the boundary. It's a long skinny area, so a lot of them are on the boundary.
Yeah.
They form the boundary.
I don't know.
I'm thinking right across from Northern Lights is that storage outfit that's up against residential. Did that have any, I don't recall that had any buffer requirements. They're gonna put the new units just the same spacing away from the property line as the other one, so. Light and glare.
I think those, speaking specifically that area along 95 and Sagal, I think that's hard. That's kind of an industrial mixed use commercial area.
It is. Well,
Yeah, I
that's
think so.
That's the-
And
I
that's
started
what
by
it is.
saying, I think mixed use,
Yes.
that parcel belongs
What it
mixed
is.
use, right?
Yeah.
That's.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have to necessarily, in that specific, especially that region, like these one-offs in Selly, surrounded by all ag forests, there's no major highway. Your rural residential is up against the highway zone, like, it's inevitable, right? We're not gonna be able to stop all progress. I don't know if we have to make all those caveats for those type of corridors that, it's just gonna happen.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it doesn't.
Seems to
Not
me
so
though,
great for
maybe
whoever
this,
has the land
maybe it's
to
an
grow.
issue that doesn't really. Isn't really a lot big a problem, because if they've had to comply with the conditions of a CUP. With their building there. Then they've already done. It. I mean, it's not they're gonna go out and change everything because.
Well, that was
the
the fear that without the CUP guidance, they'd be able to put in. The generator right up against the property line, or
Or run the generator 24/7, where now maybe they're limited to just business hours. or
yeah,
something.
something like that.
That's the concern I think we need to acknowledge.
Again, we had to look at the CUP to see what the conditions were.
Well, I mean, the other way to do it is. Require a CUP for all those uses.
Yeah.
But again, we're in, we're in the use table now. And we're not even in,
That's what I mean, for me, like, as far as comp plan goes, like, you're looking at a plan for the future, right? To me, it makes sense to leave it mixed use, not have all those caveats.
yeah, and I think we just have to deal with it when we get to zoning.
I would agree, except maybe those islands that.
Yeah.
If those were.
The islands make sense to me. To
I think
leave it.
that, those, that makes sense. We know about those. We can deal with that.
Yeah.
What do we do about the ones, you know, that we were talking about before, where they're not in a they're not CUP and they're just grandfathered. They're grandfathered in though, can they change the use? If they change the use, they're not
They can
grandfathered.
only change the use if it's
Consistent
if it's permitted.
Consistent with the
With
zone,
the grandfather.
or if the non-conforming use burns down or something, they can replace it within 2 years, but you can't expand it more than a 10% or whatever it is.
That's
It's got
non-conforming,
conditions.
they're not even non-conforming.
Well, yeah,
I think what Don's alluding to is 12,340.
yeah.
So what is the zone that's involved? As opposed to the mixed use designation?
What's that question? What's the zone?
Is it industrial zone or is it, what is it, commercial or what is it?
What do you, which
Where-
one? You referring to a sample that Dave gave?
No, that you gave.
That I did. Oh. Well, like gravel pits? But a lot of them are grandfathered in anything from the rural 5 to ag 10 to ag 20s.
Right, but what's the zone?
Pardon,
What zone are they in?
rural 5,
well,
ag 10.
20,
20.
I mean, they're all over the county. So
But
92.
They wouldn't be able to change the use. It's not an industrial zone.
No, yeah, correct. If they're considered grandfathered, that use, even that's what I'm saying, even a gravel pit, even if it was changed and designated as mixed use. They're still legally non-conforming. It doesn't change their use to legally conforming at all. Because gravel pits and mines are not permitted in the commercial and industrial zones. That use will stay legally non-conforming. Now, Warner County Code 12,340 says, if you have a grandfathered use, it's not grounds for adding other structures or uses prohibited elsewhere in the same district or zone. But they're allowed to go ahead and have permitted uses. They're
For the zone.
for the zone. I know a certain gravel pit in the Saguel, part of it's already zoned commercial. There's commercial buildings, it's split zoned. There's commercial buildings in there, and the mine is a grandfathered legal non-conforming use.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my simple approach.
Okay,
By designating this mixed use, we're not dealing with zoning at all. So
No.
this is a premature conversation.
True.
Yeah.
And again, it's the concern that people have when they think we're dealing with zoning, and we're not. We're not dealing with zoning. There are multiple zones within mixed use. Including commercial, industrial, so on and so forth. Even high density residential, so. You know, we're not dealing with zones, and we're not changing any zones. So isn't that the answer? At this point?
So the change
With the
from,
exception of the parcels that Dave has identified, and whatever Jake's gonna come up with in terms of CUPs that could be involved.
so changing the designation of transition. Most of the properties, all the properties that are presently transition designation would become mixed use.
Correct.
In addition, the non-conforming gravel pits would become, is that what we had? I think we had that as well. Is that the only addition to the list?
We were using that as a. It wasn't the only descriptor meant for it. See, the reason why I think that came up is because a lot of these all gravel pits, they've been assessed by the assessor as an industrial classification.
Right.
So that's just part of the discussion. But if we look at what we gone ahead and decided in our land use language for mixed use, you know, we gone ahead and said that it had to be located where existing commercial and industrial uses are found. Be located with direct access to one of the primary transportation corridors in the county, including Highway 95 to 4157 200, and be located where urban water and sewer services are or can be made available if required based on the nature and scale of the business. So those gravel pits that meet all those descriptors that are also taxed as industrial use. But just these alone would throw it into the mixed use category.
But did we then on the map? Did we search out all those roughly 92 gravel pits in the county and?
What we done is remember that we had those red and black boxes?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where those were identified by the assessor's office. But we need to look at all of those.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a mine in the Selly Valley. Very
Yeah.
prominent mine in the Selly
Yes.
Valley,
Yes,
who requested that his property get zone industrial.
right.
And the Selly subcommittee said yes. So on their sub area plan,
They showed it.
they showed it, just like Sagal. Sagal sub area identified.
Well, that's how the two up north of Pope and Culver got in there too.
Yeah.
Because the committee said, yes, they will, even though.
Yeah. So, so we were looking at all those, right, for the most part, were identified by those sub areas.
Yeah, the ones that they were particularly aware of.
Yeah.
Again, the record shows that I think it's 92 or something known pits around the county. Not all of which.
we didn't have
any
92.
Sub area.
There wasn't 92 that we changed.
Oh, okay, that was my question. You know, if we do some, then if that criteria fits, why not all? Part of the issue is you get these little islands of mixed use surrounded by, as we've talked tonight.
That's another issue. That's right. That is another issue. Should
It
that be
doesn't-
changed if it's an island out there?
Yeah, it just doesn't, from the very sense of continuity and everything, it doesn't make sense. Except for the fact that the pits and quarries and sandboxes are absolutely relevant to development of the county. In all standpoints. So it doesn't matter, because if the material's there, you use it. You don't pick it up and move it over there to make it in a nice compact area. There it is. It's a sandbox. There isn't one next door, there isn't one up there. Use it what you got.
Well, if we use that same theory and conversation that Dave brought up about that one use on Schumanville Road being surrounded, maybe it shouldn't be changed. Just leave it as.
Well,
And that could be said for those gravel pits and mines as well. What I'm saying is if it meets all the descriptors, the highway frontage, inclusion in a water sewer district, existing commercial industrial uses, well,
Then we change it.
then it needs to be changed. Especially when the sub-area identified.
yeah, true. Okay, so there's a distinction.
Yeah, and I
So
would
both
guess
of the
that
lists.
most of those 92 don't meet all those criteria.
No.
Because they're not gonna meet the highway access criteria.
I mean, there is, I can think of 3 or 4 along Highway 2 between Dover and State Line that are basically north of the highway, that are old pits. Some are in existence, some haven't been worked for years, but they're there. They're recognized.
And those.
And they have direct access to Highway 2.
Right, and those slate mines on the other side of Clarkport.
Yeah, all that stuff, all the, yeah, stuff out there towards Montana, exactly. So, where's that leave us?
Oh, we need to pull the map up. We pull the map up.
Which one?
Which map?
Yeah, our potential map, yeah.
Yeah.
It's under proposed in our directory.
Oh, and by the way, I did get the green light from council that I can be on here and deliberate and vote, yes, and participate.
Yeah. That's.
Be able to find that.
Map.
So that's one we had before, but it doesn't open it up.
No, it doesn't.
I could. Maybe Jake could put it up.
Can you pull a map up, Jake?
Which map do you want?
The one that we,
Our
are working on.
Draft land use map.
Conklin FDI is like, there it is, bottom of the list on the proposed dam. Oh, that's just a link.
I know, all we've got is the link. I wish we had the actual.
Copy it and paste it into the browser. That I don't think it works. I mean, right? Nope, it does. Then you gotta put your username and password. Password.
Jake has it pulled up on the big screen behind you, John.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay.
This is the link. I mean, it's not even a link, it's just a.
Yeah. So. What do you want to look at? It's up on the big screen. Right behind us. Gonna fall on us. The whole county on our shoulders.
Okay, so. Are you saying all these? I'm not sure what this link is.
So anywhere that has you're talking about the commercial and industrial, right? The pink boxes are
Yeah.
industrial, and then the brown boxes, which are a little bit harder to see, probably even more so at the front line, are commercial.
Which of the two that you were talking about, Dave?
Which,
There's one right there in the middle of this, is this one of them?
at the corner,
Right there?
that's the pit on Shingle Mill.
That's.
So that should be changed.
Yep. And then there's
So if you go,
north. Up north of Coleman Culver.
Where do I go right now?
South of that.
So this is, there's Walsh Lake. That one.
That blue was a rezone for a few
That's a
years.
rezone. What happened to?
Is it down to your lower left of the screen there?
Parcels?
is that it?
That's one.
Yeah,
So those are
that's
two,
the county pit.
well, that's right, no, it's next to the county, what used to be the county pit.
That's Woods.
Peak,
Well, Peaks, yeah, but this one's Peaks.
that one's Woods.
All right,
He's still on the
so,
north side.
but the issue's the same, those are CUPs?
No,
No,
they're not operating under CUPs.
these are,
Those are Brian Woods.
these are fines, okay.
And that's part of that
interesting.
property is what he requested and is located in the Selly sub area. To be zoned industrial. And then the thought was, well, we don't want to create split zone parcels. Kind of a taboo. And so the whole parcel. Was comp planned for mixed use on that.
Yeah. But again, it's based on a parcel, not an area. So. Are those of concern? You want to get down to that?
We didn't hear any comments about those.
I think there was
Maybe.
one comment somewhere and kind of remember that it referenced these again. Why make an island?
I
Maybe
remember
they were-
two.
Yeah.
One I just pointed out, and I can't remember where the second one was.
Well, the CUP related comment was down in Salem, the second CUP related.
Yeah.
Conversely, we also had a comment that we should make the location for the river store mixed use.
Well,
It goes the other way.
right. And I kind of see the reasons kind of behind some of those comments. In our code, if it burns down more than 50%, they have to have that rebuilt in, Alex, is it 2 or 3 years?
2 years.
2 years. Well, I know of a certain restaurant just across the border in Montana. Unfortunately, it burned down twice in 4 years, and it's taken 2 years just to get the insurance company settled. In the instance of the Pack River store, if they have to battle something for 2 years and more than 50% of that thing burns down, can't replace their stuff. I don't know, for myself, I like the Pack River store. I know it is beneficial for a lot of people that live up there in that area. I don't. So that'd be another conversation, is it doesn't operate under a CUP. But it's taxed as a commercial use, has been for decades.
So it's legal non-conforming because it was there historically.
Yep.
It didn't go to a rural service center in a way. How come I did and they didn't?
Don't know.
They were part of the, trying to do what
Well,
they're
I
doing
guess the
now.
question then is, well, should these be just left legal non-conforming? These parcels? Again, does putting it into mixed use give any advantage or disadvantage compared to a non-conforming legal use in a different zone? That should be the underlying question. What advantage is there to making a designation, a certain designation?
Well, you just gotta look at those and see if it meets those descriptors that we determined.
Would you be left non-conforming and then come in and ask to be made conforming using those descriptors?
Only if the descriptors, I believe, only if you fit those descriptors.
I know,
That-
but for the purpose of you, if you left everything non-conforming and then let them come in and say,
Then they want to change and justify the change. That is certainly an option. That's,
my understanding, if you leave everybody non-conforming, you're not taking any rights away from them. They could use, they could. I think the state said feel free to use it, so.
it's the status quo.
So from a comp plan standpoint, are we saying that in the future that should be mixed use in these areas?
No.
Well, I don't think so.
No.
Whatever you want.
Again, what?
I mean, it's surrounded by ag forest. I think it should be go back to ag forest.
Agreed.
As we're looking, this is a comp plan, so we're forward looking as to what we think this area should be primarily designated as, and seems to me that, I mean, if you're gonna make something more mixed use, it ought to be closer to 95.
Yeah.
So those dots are the ones that you guys propose to change. These ones over here, I think are pre-existing. Some of them.
Some of them.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
industrial
they-
park.
Well, the one up there, it's right adjacent to 95 should stay mixed use.
Well, yeah, that's already industrial park. That one up to the north that was got the diamond in it, that's on the other side, it's off of 95, but it's on the other side of the railroad.
It's one of the only places that have a, what do you refer that with a train track and thing?
Yeah, it's got a siding, it's got its own
Siding.
siding, yeah, so it's got
So we also agreed, Jake,
major
that
transportation.
there's 2 other parcels that we designated mixed use that should go back to get those, what the Dave talked about.
On Shingle Mill.
So, yes, I can note it. Like I told you guys near the beginning of the meeting, GIS is gonna create a second comment, so we can drop these comments on individual properties you guys want to
Well,
change. So I
no,
can,
wait
I
a
can
minute
keep a,
though. No, we're talking about, we've made decisions now. I mean,
Yeah.
like we just made a decision on all those recreation resort things.
you wanna revert all of those back.
Yeah,
and you wanna
refer them all
change.
back. I mean,
Some-
why should we have to go in and mark all that stuff?
It's just so we don't lose track of this. That's fine. I can keep a written document of it and then see if I can make the changes in that.
Are there other areas up there?
Well, that one comment that came in said these areas along 95 between the railroad and the highway, shouldn't they be as well? I don't think they're not caught on the map. It was a decent suggestion.
I mean, rural 5. I think some of those comments were that they should be rural 5.
No, they were rural 5 now. Why should they be there between the railroad and the highway? Wasn't it the other way around?
Well, maybe we're talking about different parcels.
Yeah, it's further up towards Elmira, East Elmira, up in that area where BNSF and the highway get pretty close together. There's this long skinny 6 or 7 parcels that are not all one ownership either. But would they be at all suitable for recreation, intrinsically suitable? For residential?
I'm not sure they're suitable for anything.
Well, industrial, because they're right there on the highway.
Are there, but are they big enough?
Yeah, that was my thought. Man, some of these are,
Reasonable with them?
at the north end, they're like 25 feet wide,
Yeah.
down to a fairly decent, but you can see it when you zoom in on the map up in that area. There's a bunch of them that just kind of get squoozed in by the railroad. And then beyond that, up further north, there's 2 railroads, railroad highway. Why not that strip as well that we kind of overlooked to be mixed use? Those don't have road spurs and they're likely never to get them because they're very,
That's
very
a
expensive,
concern also with the state.
extremely expensive to get.
Yeah.
I mean, millions of dollars per quarter mile to put in for the both BNSF and UP.
So what I would like to be able to do is we need to have access to the comments, Jake. Because I've got a bunch of comments here that I thought we should address. Comment 80, 994, 97, 224 to 240. They're different areas. And, unless we could pull those up and we can identify the parcels, it's not going to be useful to discuss them. Do you have the comments written down or just the numbers? Just the numbers. I hope that didn't change.
Yeah.
It sounds like it changed.
Well, let's see if they could be identified.
Where you want me to go to?
Go to 180, see what that is.
Comment number 180. Regarding Lynn Scott Sago gravel pit.
Oh, maybe not.
No, let's go ahead and discuss this. If you look on, and that's another thing, is that map there is not the same map that we have where we made our little pin drops. That outline's different.
They should be the exact same one.
It's
just based on parcel.
Nope, it's not. There's the map. There's the map.
By sign.
Yeah, see, they're different.
Ooh.
I can't see everything around it because there's so many other comments layered on top of them.
Oh,
It might be changing some of the comments there. So.
okay.
It's over there.
So
That, with regard to that comment, though, I mean, that area was an area that was identified. And
if you look at the existing comp map and zoning map, all that is already transitioned. There's a portion that's not. But the whole area on the other map that Jake had pulled up is what the Sagal subarea identified.
and it's within that definition that they had of a certain district.
100% in their definition. Matter of fact,
Okay, so that wasn't one I said, I tried to get a 190, but put a 197. But that was. That'd be the same, but they won't show it.
No, this is still the version you guys have.
okay, what's interesting there is
What is that?
that it's kind of referred to as the Priest River Industrial Park. If you took those colors and those layers off and everything, it's just right outside of Priest River. On
Oh yeah, yeah. That's pretty true.
right, and so the thought was, I'm not. We went back to our other map and looked at it. We looked at some of those other parcels that are around it and determined that probably should be.
Yeah, but the comment was, shouldn't be heavy industrial. Well, it's the mixed use is not heavy industrial, it's.
Right.
It'd be all kinds of different things. So again, it's another, we see this a lot of these comments, that there's a confusion between zoning and that land use designation. So the fact that, you know, there's commercial and others not in there, that should be, it should be mixed use. So
Why is
what's
it?
this? Okay, so that was wrong. Go to 224. If I got one. Is that, Weimer, yeah, so he's got all kinds of property.
Yeah, they made a lot of comments because they own all sorts of property, so I think they made comments on each individual one. If I'm not mistaken.
And I think we did make a mistake, I think, maybe didn't make a mistake, but. I think the designation is probably incorrect. It's not on the Weimer property, but it's on the ruined property.
Yes,
On Old Peninsula.
Oh, yeah. So,
There was a difference between, the old
yeah,
comprehensive plan designation and zoning.
right.
And we went with ag forest, where actually, you know, it was the original comp plan designation was recreation. And that should be changed back to recreation.
that's not whole green, that pretty much like peninsula.
The whole peninsula currently is
It's all
called
owned by the
recreation.
same, it's all owned by the same family. That should be back to recreation.
This is government through here.
To the south,
All,
all
the
those-
dark green is government, that's why it's a dark green.
No, the light green.
So down the south.
All the rest.
all that.
Peninsula.
Yeah, if you go ahead and put that layer on current, you'll see the whole thing is current rec.
But it needs to go back. Except for the government land.
Why was that? I'm sorry.
Well, that was the previous designation, we basically downzoned.
A major exception.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
So I don't know about the Weimer properties, but he had a bunch of comments, maybe we should just deal with those maybe at the next meeting, but.
Sure.
There's some other comments. Well, before we go into that, does anybody have any other kind of global changes or concerns that we have addressed tonight?
I had a few people at the different workshops, and I've also seen a couple comments in writing. What we're doing is basically taking the rural, in a lot of these areas, the rural designation and switching it to the ag. And I've heard people have some exception to that.
Well, you know, that's because it was rural 10, that would be ag.
Why are they objecting to it?
Well, because they say it's a rural designation. What's changed on that to change it from a rural designation to an ag designation? And again, we're discussing bringing zoning into the equation. Just this last month, even the Board of County Commissioners have gone ahead and allowed 2 zone changes from rural 10 to rural 5. So I understand what we've done. We looked at the zoning, the ag 10 zoning. We're getting rid of the rural 10 zone. Rural 10 comp plan, or slide them over into the ag 10. Which will eventually lead into an ag 10 zone, more likely. And so the comment was, why are you doing that? It was designated as rural. It's currently rural. What now makes it ag?
Well, it goes back to the whole discussion. There was very little difference between ag and rural to begin with.
On the use portion, right? But if it's
Well, and even on the description.
right, in the description, I agree.
Well, and don't forget, it's rural residential. Ag forest is land use, some component of either agriculture or forestry on that parcel. So it's an exemption, if they're in a forested area or an ag area, that actually, it's more agricultural or forestry than it is purely residential. That was the basis of our discussion. Say, why do we have
a 10 acre designation or zone in two different places that seem to say the same thing.
Or, you know,
Or-
another, I'm sorry, another interesting question would be how many people with parcels in R10 have forestry exemptions?
Right, that was
Well,
the thing.
yeah, but I don't know if we should look at that. I think any single person out there who's understand how an exemption works, has an ag or a timber exemption on their property as long as they have 5 acres. Whether it truly is used for agricultural use or forestry use.
So their concern, I guess, would be that. If this comp plan is approved by the POCC. Then if they want to go to a 5 acre minimum, they would have to get a comp plan amendment and a zone change. Okay.
And I think the comments he's talking about, my guess would be, are very minimal, all of the ones you got.
I'd say most of the comments we get go the other way.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, yeah, but the comments I have heard were on people who have currently that rural designation. And we're changing it to an ag designation. On their particular parcels, not me talking about everybody else's parcel, how I want to see everyone else's land. They're talking about how this is going to affect them.
Yeah, sure. That's the basis of those comments. But if the concern was, I'm already rural, so rural character is preserved. Is not agriculture and forestry more rural nature, rural character? I mean, doesn't that designate?
Yeah, but I think the issue, Don, is they have to go 2 steps further than 1.
Yeah, so they don't want to lose what they think they've got, but they haven't exercised it, so they don't have it.
Right. I mean, we heard just as many comments, maybe more, going the other way.
Yeah.
That was
But
the-
not
that was
on
the
their own
comment-
property.
That was the whole comment we had when we considered the rural land use designation. Oh, you can't do that because.
Right.
It's gonna make it easier to change all these
Right,
properties.
but it's interesting, all of those comments, I'm not talking about their individual land. Or they want to see everyone else's land that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I counted, out of the 161 that I reviewed, only 8% or less. Wanted more density.
Yeah.
Whether it was for their parcel or it was for somebody else's. The overwhelming majority of the comments were less density.
Most sports. Keep the sports still minimum.
All right, any other overall?
I can make a comment. I'm in rural 10 and I don't care if you make it ag forest 10. I don't care either way.
You do have a written comment from City of Priest River, signed by the mayor. If you like, I could read it. It has to do with the exact topic of densities. So this is, addressed to the commissioners, or planning commissioners. The City of Priest River has reviewed the proposed comp plan amendments and have the following general comments regarding the land use near cities. Allowing high density development to be adjacent to cities without city services limits the city's growth potential and ability to provide services to higher density development. By allowing high densities to be adjacent to the cities without these services, there is no incentive to annex into the city and results in establishing a block to other desired annexation connectivity and city services. Generally, providing utility services is an economies of scale. The more users of a system, the more economical and affordable it becomes. Providing wholesale type utility services outside of the city limits has multiple downsides when dealing with non-residential residents and small municipal systems. Higher density development near cities also contributes to impacts on other city services without the ability to control density uses or collect fees for other services provided, such as roads and parks. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Sincerely yours, Jeff
What
Conley.
areas what was it specifically referring to?
Suburban zone, well, any high density around the city limits.
Remember when Brian Quayle addressed us and he said, please don't do this, keep it low density so that there's incentive to come in. So that was written under the pen of Brian Quayle, signed by the mayor.
Didn't we get a comment to the opposite from the mayor of Sandpoint?
Somebody.
No, it was the
No.
community development director of Sandpoint where so you have these conflicting ideas, right? you have one city that has municipal services that are abundant, like they have plenty of capacity left, city of Priest River, for example. Then you have others who are meeting closer to their capacity. They don't want to see additional residential development. They're expecting the city to absorb the residential demand out, or sorry, the county to absorb the residential demand near the cities.
But you know, there's a comment from Jeremy Grimm in our comments.
Oh, okay.
It says you should put higher density uses adjacent to Sandpoint here, which I found interesting because I thought he was making a lot of press recently about he's at his limits as far as the number of people he can serve.
They're not gonna serve outside the city.
But there's a
Correct.
comment
Serve
from
that area with-
there's a comment from him, and it specifically identified some areas.
His was the one in the Selly Valley. I think he had
had a
highlighted a big
couple.
chunk of the Selly Valley adjacent to Sandpoint
Yeah, kind of
that applied to.
north of
Beyond the area was-
north of 200 and
Yeah.
east of
See if I can
95,
find it
sort
real
of.
quick.
Yeah,
So as far as the city of Priest River,
but it was
this
the
is-
opposite of
It
what-
is. It's-
what Jeff was saying.
Yeah.
He was saying, go ahead and put some high density here.
I think we had this discussion some months ago, I think last late summer, early fall. Where there were some cities down in southern Idaho and throughout the state that have essentially become landlocked by higher density development around the city limits. Which is exactly what Priest River is trying to avoid here. So they want to incentivize, so what they would like is 5 acre minimums at the very most. 10 acres would be great on the edges of or around the city limits, and then any higher density can be in other communities like Coolin or Salem or Blanchard.
I think the comment was made to me by Quail, I think. At the workshop, yeah, he was referring to the mixed use area.
Hmm.
But that's, I don't know what difference that would make because it's already commercial. Already commercial investment right now, so. This one.
I can ask for specific areas. I know there's some currently zoned suburban areas around and comp plan designated suburban areas around the city as well. Perhaps they're asking us to change that to a different designation.
I'll need to see exactly what he's referring to.
I can ask for some.
About that Grim comment?
No, we're talking about Mr. Quayle. Mr. Conley.
What about the grand comment? Which area?
So again, it's a block of land just north.
I can put that up on the screen. if you guys
It's
do.
comment number 102.
Yeah, I think it's north on North Kootenai Road where it is.
Up to.
Is that a comment by as mayor or is that a comment as?
He doesn't specify. He just says he's a county resident. This area is adjacent to an urbanizing. You can read it for yourself.
I think it's already in the ACI.
Yeah, I believe so. 'Cause I think the ACI goes all the way up to. The Bronx, Bronx, yeah. So it's this area right here. Here's the comment. Oh, sorry.
What's the
I
area?
don't know if that's better or worse.
You have a, can you pull up a map? So that's the area you're talking about right there?
It's, you can kind of, it's highlighted, you just can't really see it all that well.
Oh, yeah, that big block, almost a section.
Well, maybe it should be suburban. Is that part of the Selly Valley comp plan area?
They did, even though,
No.
remember, we told them they were supposed to stay out of the
Yeah,
ACI.
we said.
Oh.
I don't know if you remember that.
No, it was, so it does. But that ACI does go to Bronx.
Is that the ACI for Kootenai or for Sanford?
Is that? Those still haven't been adjusted though, have they?
No, I'm working on it. It's gotta happen this year.
So currently it goes all the way to Selly Road, believe it or not.
Selling just.
Yeah.
Selly, they're proposing to bring it down to Bronx.
Oh,
Currently
they're-
it goes to Selly.
They want to retain as much as they can under the new statute, which is 2 miles from the current city limits. So they're gonna. Bring it down a little. We'll see what the board ends up doing, but the area of impact areas and the agreement have to be modified by the end of the calendar year.
So what's the difference between that area and the area right next to it?
I think there's a comment over the top of that, so some of that is already. Looks like rural residential. I have to pull it up on the other map.
This area?
Sorry.
Left with grams.
So I think. Let's see, right here. So this is the area Mr. Grimm's talking about, and this is the area right next to it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So you can see like there's a block over the top of that that makes it colored a little green.
Oh,
It's another comment. So someone put a big comment over there.
So now we've got this ag forest,
That's what it looks like.
now probably should be either rural 5 or. What do you think?
If you look at the topo on that. And the road system on that, it's
pretty hilly,
it is very hilly.
pretty hilly.
Yeah.
Those big parcels up there are. Yeah.
I think I'm inclined to leave it the way it is.
Mostly
It's never
field
been
along the
really
road
obvious
and
to me
of the
why we should serve the city's desires in this case,
And I don't. I
quite
think-
frankly.
I
you
know Jeremy doesn't work for the city of Kootenai. I think that is Claire.
Yeah. Yeah, Roden Yeager has a contract with you.
So I don't think his comment came from a mayor or anything like that standpoint. I think it was just his personal comment.
Oh, he said he's a
resident.
Resident.
Yeah.
So what? Thing.
All right, so. What I think we should do, I think we need to all go back and look at the comments. And the map, the portion of the map that they deal with and come back with our list of things we should address. Whether we need to change anything or not, that's a list of things that we should address. And let's go through that.
Can I verify my list, my to-do list with you guys? Real quick, it's short. So on the draft component, it's remove the land use matrix, add applicable zoning to the land use descriptions. Mr. Hidden said he had a draft. I've created a draft. Feel free to share what you have and I'll compare. I was making some changes to it. I added a version 15 with today's date. I'll use that moving forward for any of the changes to land use component. I don't think we should stick with multiple versions. We'll just do version 15 as our final. That all makes sense. Okay. Create and map approved CUPs around the county compared to the proposed mixed use map. Change the mixed use land area back in the Selly Valley area, and I have a handful of specific properties. Change the
Sagal,
and Sagal.
what Dan Sagal, Dave?
I think that would still maybe require some more discussion.
Okay.
Because like I said, that area was identified in the Sagal sub-area plan to be mixed use. And it's in that quarter-mile either side of 95 corridor, so,
Northern Lights.
yeah, so I mean, I understand the concern that the adjacent neighbors have. That's why I say I'm not sure, maybe there's some other way to address that concern.
The other change and mixed use that was expanded was just south of Old Town. I don't think we touched on that. I don't think we got any comments on it, but that's the other area that you guys expanded the. mixed
The
use.
coffee shop and
You grab the block of area, so change all of that. So I don't, like I said, I don't think we got any comments against that. I don't know if anyone is aware that that changed, so.
Well, we're not. Go back to what you had, I didn't think I did much, we didn't make a wholesale change, but I'll mix this.
No, there was an expansion of the mixed use area in Old Town. That's all I'm getting at. Sorry. You guys were evaluating your changes in mixed use, and that's one that didn't get brought up that I thought I would just mention.
I think the ones that I would look for are there any other examples where we took and made an island of mixed use based on an existing use?
Okay.
And maybe those should stay the way
It's
they
not
are.
adjacent to the highway area.
Right. Right.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll see if I can identify any of those. Look for
So
islands.
should we talk a little bit about, a schedule, what? Yes. And obviously, we'd like to get this thing done sooner rather than later. What are we shooting for? How many more meetings do we have? Or we'll get it to the commissioners?
Well, how often do you guys want to meet? Right now, we're doing 2 meetings a month. My initial expectation was that you would come up with a final draft of the map and the component by the end of March. Hold a hearing in April and then a recommendation to the board. The board would then come up with its process, but potentially a hearing in May. But we'll see what the board ends up doing.
Okay, so we'll keep chugging along. If we want to have a hearing until the end of March, then we have to get 22 days notice. So that means we need to get this thing finalized by the first meeting in March.
I think April's more likely to hold a hearing.
Yeah.
So if we can finalize the draft by the end of March and then have a hearing near the end of April. I think
So
that's
there's
more,
2 more meetings to finalize.
that was my
We got
first
2 more
question. How
meetings,
often you guys
so
want to
let's
meet?
keep in mind that we've got 2 meetings to get this done. There were some suggestions from Dave Bowman on the yes, on the text, which we should probably review as well.
Yes.
Some of them are grammatical, some of them are not. Most of them are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good comments. One of them is creating an industrial land use. I don't think we need to do that, but we should address that. But maybe we'll address that next week, or next meeting. Which is
March 6th, I believe.
March
4th. Yeah,
Fourth.
2 weeks from today, 4th.
March 4th.
You
All
got-
right, so we'll do that and we'll address some specific comments. I think we actually accomplished quite a bit tonight. I think we've probably dealt with a majority of comments. So,
Do you want to stick with just the 2 meetings in March, the 4th and the 18th?
is there a third meeting?
Nope,
Well, we can have it
Or
before.
we can have a third meeting?
that's what I'm asking.
I'm leery to cram everything we need to do for a public hearing with 2 more meetings.
All right, so why don't we plan on meeting, that will be the next meeting, March 25th?
We could do the 11th. That would be 3 weeks in a row.
For 11 and 18 then.
Yeah, I just something, at least one more, if not 2.
March
So
11th.
here we are today, we could do the 25th, and on the 4th, yes, the 11th, 25th, and 11th. but here, you said,
Okay, well, let's do that. Let's do the 11th.
just the 11th.
We can reevaluate after that meeting and see where we're at.
All right, anything else we need to do tonight, or? I think we accomplished something, right?
Suppose I could bring this up. We've already dealt with the rec lots, so it's not germane to that, but. I think we've all been concerned that. And a lot of people brought it up, not just in the context of Priest Lake, but just kind of the broad topic of adequate analysis to justify any changes. That brought up that one comment from Tom Buddy, we all about Priest Lake, but he referenced looking at what's gone on historically down at Lake Tahoe. So I spent a day looking at the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency and what they've done since 1969, where they analyzed the entire drainage basin of Tahoe. And then came up, their whole thing of land development then resolved down to land coverage. And the maximum land coverage, you can have an A parcel with 30%. And there's 7 designations of land types. The first 3 are deemed non-buildable because they're riverine, there's swamps, there, all that stuff, some unbuildable of some extent, but no exception. The last 4 categories go from minimally developable all the way up to go for it, number 7. And it's all based on land coverage. Now there's this very extensive formula for figuring out how many points you get out of possible 1,400 points towards how much coverage you can have, including credits and all kinds of stuff. But the basis of it is this very extensive analysis to look at the drainage basin to ensure that the lake quality is going to be maintained by certain actions. That goes a long way. We haven't done that because in that case specifically. Tahoe, as you know, is split between Nevada and California. So the two states in the late sixties got together and said, we need to figure this out. They came up with an agreement to form that agency, which because of interstate commerce on the lake had to be blessed by Congress. And got put in place. But it's a very heavily bureaucratic thing that happens there. Lots of lawsuits, some, I don't know if you put the balance up, whether it be yes or no on either side, it's hard to say. But point is, they did this very rigorous analysis to show the detriments and benefits of doing certain things. About 17% of the pollution in the lake came from roads. So they're now dealing with both Nevada DOT and Caltrans to totally change the road system in there with tremendous amount of filtration of the runoff before it hits the lake. Before that, they just had direct discharge from the roads into the lake. So all these kind of things. So I'm thinking like to go the next step, which we agreed tonight we're not going to go to, but we should put it in our recommendations that such a study be done for our critical lake areas. And it should be the state of Idaho and the Forest Service predominantly that do it because they're the ones that have caused the problems. With all those little lots they created on both sides. The county has a role in it for administration, but the analysis certainly, I think, should come from the state. We're not blessed with the Tahoe situation by any means.
Well, that is it is a problem because the state created a lot of those laws.
Yes.
And I could say that, and they may actually create some more.
Yeah.
Create some problems with us.
Yeah.
But I don't, what people really don't understand around the lake is that the bigger threat for density is not what we're doing, it's the state of Idaho.
There are 3 bills that I'm tracking right now that's going through the legislators. One would require public comments at every public meeting. It was a similar bill that was proposed last year, didn't make it very far. Another one that I'm tracking is changes to our ability to regulate cell towers. And I can pass on to you guys these different numbers. Then the third one, which is really interesting, would require any leased land from IDL, including endowment land, to meet any commercial uses by the local planning and zoning. So it would give us some authority over endowment land that we don't currently have. I guess there's
Residential.
no, it didn't say it's specified commercial.
What does that mean?
I know, right?
How effective is that?
So there was a marina. No, there was a leased property somewhere in central Idaho that was turned into like a campground RV park that turned out to be like a pretty horrible situation. But because endowment land is carved out and we don't have regulatory authority over it, local jurisdiction couldn't do anything because it's owned by IDL.
So it's giving us jurisdiction over commercial uses on endowment land.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's actually, if they expanded that to residential, that would be a reason. That's huge. That would be a reason for us to create a new land use designation, right, and zoning for residential uses around the lake. Yeah. Around any body of water, really.
Yeah, there's like one leased marina that I know of on Priest Lake that's on endowment land. It's north of Coolin. What's the big peninsula there?
Probably Hills.
Yeah,
Not Hills.
no, it's on the right side.
On the west side, on the east side, it's on the west side.
No, not Pinto. It's the
Marinas,
marina.
the marinas.
You know, it's on that road.
Has marina.
No, it's on a road that the county just had to rebuild and dedicate it. It was this whole legal issue. But anyways, I know that's the one I know of that's a commercial. Like I said earlier, the marinas are a public use in our use table, which should probably change.
Yeah, there's one over there.
Yeah. Lowell Finnick was part of that. Yeah.
Diamond.
Yes.
Blue Diamond.
Blue Diamond Marina.
Now it's Clipper.
Yeah, yeah. It was just changed hands to a different
That's
lease.
the area. I think Finnick might even have something to do with that.
Yeah.
Well, that would be interesting.
So any other, like, if someone gets a permit, for example, to do a campground or an RV park on state property, or if it's endowment land, we would it specifically carves out, they have to meet local planning and zoning regulations. So that's one change, the first time I've seen that of adding jurisdiction for endowment land properties back to the county.
This has already taken place, or is this proposed?
It's proposed, so I haven't followed it. There's another one that all the planning directors are scared about, which would exempt structures from building codes for ag buildings. So I've just been laughing as we don't have building codes. They're all very concerned about it and been emailing a lot, so I'm not so worried about it.
Well, you know, it reminds me of one area that we didn't discuss tonight, and that is, we had a bunch of comments from the lake about those residential lots that are at the bottom of the lake.
Yep.
Which were created in a sort of an underhanded way.
Yep.
And somehow they're already designated rec. Maybe we should designate that R5. If they're non-conforming. What are they currently on?
Correct.
I don't know how.
Do you propose, was that upzoning?
Maybe down zoning.
Down zoning?
I didn't think we were doing that.
I was gonna say, I thought, we don't do that.
You can change the comp plan designation without changing the zoning.
Yeah, we could change that. We talk about that next time.
I hope to have an updated maps and other documentation within the next couple of weeks for you guys at the next meeting. So we're still kind of reacting to closing everything out like we previously discussed. So okay, that's I can forward you guys those bills that I found, and so just be aware. And I'll keep tracking them. That's all I have. Any other items you want to talk about on the next meeting?
Which is going to be March.
4th.
I think that's enough. If we get through all that, then we'll be doing good. All right, so that being said, we'll be adjourned until March board 4:30 p.m. at this address.